41. Return to the surface. I say, isn't our aimless searching terribly inefficient? Sampo is a masked fool. You know, he might deliberately make places look like passages just to trick us. March 7th, one of the few actually looking for a way through, frowned. So what do you suggest we do? At times like this, we use detective work. The techniques from novels probably won't help. How will we know if we don't try? Huh? Where's Star? She was just here. Could she have? Dan Heng pointed, and March 7th followed his indication to a row of trash cans. The lid of the middle can was propped open by a gray figure. March 7th rushed over and pulled Star out. Hey, how could Sampo hide a secret passage in a trash can? Wait, March, look at the bottom of that can. Something's off. March 7th lifted it and found the truth. The can had no bottom. It was simply covering something like a manhole beneath Star's feet. So that's how you got inside without getting your clothes dirty. There's nothing in this trash can at all. Dan Heng shrugged, set the empty can aside, and with emotion pulled out Cloudpiercer to pry up the hidden manhole cover. Dan Heng, your spear, that's another use for it? Star peered into the darkness and, without hesitation, volunteered to go down. A few minutes later, she climbed back up. Well, if you go straight down, you hit a distorted space. Go through it, and it leads upward. It's hidden cleverly. Good old Sampo. I didn't expect him to hide a passage in a trash can, March 7th said. Let's tell the others. At the orphanage, Celia and Bronya had been sitting quietly. Their hands had edged closer, a few timid touches, then finally they interlaced fingers. The communicator buzzed at that moment. Both yanked their hands away as if shocked and turned their heads. Alicia, having used Eno's ability to block incoming messages, had prevented anyone from being alerted and watched their reactions with keen interest. Ahem, they found the passage Sampo left. Let's go. Okay. Celia and Bronya left the orphanage, and Eno dashed to the spot Star had marked. In an alley of the administrative district, a stone slab shifted and a pink head popped out. I didn't expect Sampo's passage to actually be useful. I can finally see daylight again, but where is this place? It doesn't look like anywhere people live. Celia followed up, stunned by the open sky and drifting clouds. Once everyone had gathered in the alley, Bronya studied the distant buildings and spoke with measured calm. This area isn't far from the administrative district, but the fragmentum already reached it before you arrived. No wonder. If your destination is Everwinter Hill, there are two routes. The first is a long detour across the suburban snowfields, very slow, and it means crossing through the administrative district. The other route is shorter, but runs through the guards' restricted zone. It's heavily defended by the Silvermane guards and suffers more severe fragmentum erosion. Both have risks. Dan Heng looked at Eno. If you want to reach the Stellaron faster, I have a plan. I can take Star and force our way through the restricted zone. With my skill, even if the entire front line of Silvermane guards see us, they wouldn't be able to stop us. Seal is stealthy. She could go with us. How did you know? When we fought in the Great Mine in Rivet Town, I noticed you, Seal. You're nimble and good at finding weak spots in defenses and breaking through. I guessed you'd be useful for this. I can slip past their defenses without facing the Silvermane guards directly, but from what you say, you don't plan to go with us. That's right. I'll return to Klipoth Fort to see Mother. What? You're going alone? No, that's two. Bronya placed her hand on Celia's. Celia, I am Kokolia's daughter, and that will never change. As both a daughter and a Silvermane guard, I must go and speak to her in person. No matter what you think, I believe there's a chance to convince Mother, even if... Celia inhaled, then steadied herself. Okay, I understand. You know what you want to do, and arguing won't change that. Just remember one thing. If you ever run into danger, I'll risk my life to save you. March 7th spread her hands and looked at Dan Heng. So that leaves just the two of us. We don't have Celia and Eno's skills, and we aren't as important as Star. I feel a bit redundant. Bronya handed March 7th a badge. Go to the workshop and find Serval, while the Silvermane guards in the administrative district are focused on me. She's Gepard's sister. Gepard's sister? Really? A beautiful blonde and a handsome blonde. Genetics really do work wonders, March 7th teased. Your priorities are odd. The point is she's trustworthy. Tell her everything truthfully. She'll go to the front with you. If the Silvermane guards are thrown into confusion by Eno and the others, my badge plus Serval's personal support should be enough to make Gepard believe what you say. But Kokolia is Belobog's supreme guardian. What if she's already ordered us to be arrested on sight? Eno and Star forcing the restricted zone could make them think we have ulterior motives. What I just said is worst-case thinking. Although Mother is the supreme guardian, on the front line the highest commander is me. The reasons are complicated, but on the front, my orders take precedence over Mother's. Right, then let's not waste time. Move out. After Eno clarified her mission, she didn't wait for Bronia's further arrangements. She and Alicia discussed how best to keep Star safe. You mean just pick her up and go? No, for a pretty girl like her, it should be more elegant. I understand. Before Star could react, Eno swept her up in a princess carry. With a grin, Eno leaped from rooftop to rooftop, carrying Star as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Seely followed close behind, but when she reached the edge of the path, Eno's trace vanished from sight. Chapter 42. The Power of the Knee. Because Eno could jump freely in Belobog, when they reached the edge road, she ignored the path between the walls and launched herself onto the parapet, racing in a straight line toward the guard's restricted zone. Star dared not open her eyes. The speed smeared the scenery into streaks and made her head spin. The dizziness passed quickly. Eno stopped and let her feet touch solid ground again. "We're here already?" Star asked. "No, look ahead." Star opened her eyes. A tall iron gate loomed before them, and a line of Silvermane guards stood watch. "This is the junction of the edge road and the guards' restricted zone," she said, taking in the tight defenses. "There's no way we can just force our way through." "It's not sheer force," Eno said. "I saw in Kokolia's memory that the Silvermane guards here deploy a lot of different automatic mechs." She took erosion from her pocket. Just as she had in the Great Mine, she seized control of every automatic mech in the restricted zone in less than 10 seconds. "Oh, Star, when we rush in later, be prepared. It's going to feel like riding a roller coaster while trying to eat peanuts with your eyes." "What?" Star blinked. Eno didn't wait for an explanation. She issued a command to all the mechs. "Execute 15 seconds after input. Intercept any target attempting to block my advance. Violent force is authorized. Cleansing protocols are prohibited. Ensure the safety of all Silvermane guards to the greatest extent possible. Go." Eno scooped Star up again, vaulted to a height higher than the gate, and flew over. An alarm blared from the silver towers. "Attention all units. Unidentified individuals have trespassed into the restricted zone. Intercept immediately." Franz, posted at the gate, was not blind. He grabbed his communicator and called the alarm through the whole garrison. The Silvermane guards began to mobilize, but the automatic mechs all synchronized and fell under Eno's control. She jumped back onto the wall and sprinted forward. Weapons occasionally whipped up from below, but thanks to the power stored in her knees, every time she launched herself along the wall, the projectiles fell short. Then a familiar blonde man stepped into her path. After toppling 2 out-of-control mechs, he read Eno's trajectory, caught her landing point, and hurled a strange weapon from the pack on his back. Eno reacted without hesitation. She threw Star forward. The weapon struck where Star had been, but the badge Screwlum had given Eno flashed and activated its defense, deflecting the blow. Unharmed, Eno caught Star as she fell and kept moving. Gepard's attack had failed. The other Silvermane guards could do nothing to stop her. What had once required deceiving Franz for a pass, hunting down multiple bridge control terminals, and painstakingly aligning broken spans, Eno now breezed through in under 10 minutes. Beyond the restricted zone gate, she set Star down gently. "Are you okay?" "Why did you throw me?" Star demanded, still shaky from the fall. "Because Screwlum's item only protects me," Eno said calmly. "If I hadn't sent you forward, Gepard's weapon would have hit you." Star exhaled. "Don't worry, you're not going to have to go through that again." Beyond the gate, the land was scoured and scarred by fragmentum erosion. Here they could fight and move with fewer restraints. At Klipoth Fort, however, a different tension unraveled. "Mother, I'm back." Kokolia's heart leapt at the familiar voice in her ear. She looked at Bronya with a mix of sorrow, relief, and above all, relaxation. Mother, these past few days in the underworld, Bronya began. Continue. Cocolia urged. In the underworld, I saw how people live, made friends, and learned the truth about the world. The previous Supreme Guardians actually knew that the Stellaron was the true cause of the fragmentum. Cocolia sat in her large chair, each word digging at her. Bronya had never seen her so worn. Mother, you. I understand, Bronya. Cocolia's voice was flat as she forced herself into command. Fetch the latest edition of Belobog's law code from the third shelf. Bronya brought the thick volume and tentatively asked, Mother, about the lockdown. Something in Bronya's question snapped. Cocolia's gentle features hardened. Return to your quarters. You are not to leave your room without my express command. Mother, withdraw. Reluctantly and surprised, Bronya obeyed. Several Silvermane guards escorted her back to her rooms. Once she was alone, Cocolia opened the law code, her finger tracing the pages until her gaze fixed on a particular passage. After a long, still moment, she closed the book, uncapped a freshly inked pen, and carefully signed her name at the end of the document. Back at the restricted zone, as soon as Inno released her control, the automatic mechs reverted to their standard programming. The zone resumed its usual, severe order. The guards returned to their posts, but morale among the elite units was the lowest many had ever seen. One person, carrying and protecting another, had traversed the entire zone without a scratch. The idea alone was almost unthinkable. Reports from every department painted an odd picture. The melee of the automatic mechs had been dramatic, but their apparent intent was not to kill indiscriminately, rather to protect the guards. Despite the chaos, only a few dozen people suffered minor wounds. There were no fatalities and no severe injuries. The mechs, which could usually crush a Silvermane guard with a single strike, had seemed to hold back on purpose. Not only that, reconnaissance teams found no fragmentum creatures massing near the restricted zone. The watchtowers reported no large-scale cluster attacks, no roaming fragmentum at all. Gepard stared at the incoming reports and felt the impossible conclusion settle in. Had she almost eradicated them all? 43. Affirmation from Brother Tumu. After a one-sided slaughter of fragmentum constructs, Inno returned to her faithful Everwinter Hill. Are you all right after that fight? She asked. Star replayed the intense but entirely one-sided battle in her head. Whenever Inno charged forward, she had swept away swarms of fragmentum with overwhelming force. Star had been there to swing her bat and pick off any stragglers. They made a good team, only two of them, but enough. Star straightened, hands on her hips, and said proudly, The two of us are just too strong. Wait, the two of us. Inno trailed off and realized Seal hadn't shown up. She should have slipped through the guard's restricted zone during the chaos, right? Inno hesitated. The Stellaron was important, but Seal's safety mattered too. The fragmentum in the area had been nearly wiped out. Star could handle the odd straggler alone. You stay here. Don't move. I'll go. Star pushed her right hand out. I don't eat oranges. Ah, huh? I mean, I'll go confirm Seal's safety. What I meant was, since there aren't many monsters left, while you go find Seal, I can try to sense the Stellaron first. Oh, Inno didn't object. She plunged back into the fragmentum. As she had guessed, Seal had slipped out amid the chaos before the gate to the restricted zone closed, but she was now cornered in the echoing ruins, surrounded by fragmentum constructs. One of them was a large blue thing, more formidable than the extraterrestrial ice they had faced in Rivet Town. Seal muttered under her breath, frustrated. She'd lost sight of her trail at first, then tracked it, and now she had no clue and was stuck dealing with these things. No, I can't just wait here to die, she told herself. I need to find that Stellaron, then check on Bronya. Wait, why am I thinking of her now? Seal tried to break through. She went invisible, struck the nearest imaginary weave with a sneak attack, then vanished again. Ch-ch, that big one blocking the path is a problem. If I don't take it down cleanly like in Rivet Town, I could get my scythe stuck. I'll clear the smaller ones first. Because fragmentum constructs reacted slowly and never cooperated, Seal's usual routine worked. She dealt with many of the little blue and red ones. When she finished, her invisibility flickered off. Why now? Oh well, only a few left. No need to hide. A tall fragmentum construct noticed her and stomped, summoning 4 Everwinter shades in front of it. Great, It can even summon minions. I'll have to go all out. Just as Seal prepared to fight to the death, a white spear pierced the tall construct from behind. The construct and its summons disintegrated instantly. Seal exhaled. Guess I ended up being the extra person someone had to worry about. If I'd known I couldn't keep up with you, I would've, never mind. Bronya definitely wouldn't let me go. Seele, when I first found you, I thought you were invisible even to Fragmentum. You could see me? Seele asked. Yes, but you were paler than usual when invisible. How do you do that? Seal shrugged. Honestly, I'm not really sure. I stumbled on it while trying a tracking ability in the underworld. If you want a reason, it's probably tied to the path of preservation and the Aeon Qlipoth. So it comes down to path energy, Eno muttered. By the way, why are you so powerful? Seal asked Star. Probably because of another Aeon, the Erudition Aeon. Erudition. So you don't really know either. Wait, are there more Aeons beyond the Star Dome? There are 18 in all. According to the most widely circulated accounts, 2 are missing and 4 are dead. Aeons can die like ordinary people, Seal said. Let's not get philosophical now. We should rendezvous with Star. When Eno and Seal climbed Everwinter Hill, Star was nowhere to be found. Nothing bad happened, did it? Let's go up, Eno said. They reached the place where Eno and Cocolia had fought. While searching, Seal noticed an odd depression in a snowdrift. Beneath it lay Star, motionless, her finger pointing forward. Her chest felt unnaturally warm. What's wrong with her? Why is she so hot? Seele, step back, Eno warned, already sending a message to the Astral Express as she hurried to Star's side and grabbed her. It seems the Stellaron here is resonating with the Stellaron inside her, Eno said. She had planned for the 3 of them to explore the area together. When Star had shown the first sign of reaction, Eno intended to call the Astral Express and keep Star well clear of Everwinter Hill. But after Star arrived, Eno had stepped away for only a moment. The local Stellaron had taken that chance to tempt Star, drawing her closer and closer. If the Stellaron could tempt Cocolia, of course it could tempt anyone, especially someone who already carried a Stellaron. This was no time for blame. The problem now was how to keep Star safe. When Eno used erosion to probe Star's body, she discovered that the energy of the hill's Stellaron had bound itself to the one inside Star in a complex entanglement. Eno felt like a bomb disposal specialist who had to sever a delicate connection before energies detonated. From somewhere behind her, a pair of hands gently stroked her back, and a calm, familiar voice whispered in her ear. It steadied her. Brother Tumu's presence, small, solid, reassuring, cut through the rising panic and focused her. At the same moment, Star woke to what was happening. Semi-conscious, she felt her body swell with energy and heard the Stellaron's voice in her head. Embrace destruction, then gain new life. No, Star croaked. With Tumu's quiet affirmation grounding her, Eno found the operation suddenly manageable. What had felt like advanced mathematics snapped down to simple addition and subtraction. She concentrated, channeling her imaginary energy like a scalpel, and in an instant, she severed the connection between the 2 Stellarons. The Silvermane Iron Guard only needs to fight. The Grand Guardian has to think about much more. Sometime later, Steli fully regained consciousness. She was still on Everwinter Hill, but besides Seele and Eno, there were 2 other people beside them. Focusing, she saw Himeko and Welt. The Stellaron. The Stellaron inside you is very stable now. The Stellaron in Belobog was just sealed by Welt and me. Luckily, Eno severed the connection between the 2 Stellarons in time. Welt said. Eno shook her head immediately. No, the main reason Stella is still safe is because of herself. In that critical moment, she was thinking about how to prevent herself from harming us and the people of Belobog, even if the worst happened. Her will to preserve reached such an extent that it drew Qlipoth's attention. The Aeon's gaze instantly stabilized the chaotic energy inside her, Himeko added. In any case, it was still my oversight if I'd taken you with me when I went to find Seal. It's fine. What I should say now is, a blessing in disguise? Stella cut in, and then, as if to prove it, produced a flame lance in her hand. Is this my new ability after being glanced at by Qlipoth? Probably. I was able to draw it after I woke up. Now among us, only March 7th doesn't have a gun. Seal blinked. Is that the point? Anyway, since things here are temporarily settled, I should head back to the administrative district. We'll go with you. Even in the worst case, we can make sure Bronya stays safe. Yes, Welt and I still need to monitor the Stellaron a while longer. Leave the rest to you younger folks. They set off again, and with Ino deliberately slowing the group, they reached the guards' restricted zone at the same time as the others. To their surprise, when the Silvermane guards saw them, they formed up but showed little hostility. Behind Gepard, they saw Serval, March 7th, and Dan Heng. "You guys are fast," someone called. "We just convinced Gepard and Himeko and Uncle Yang sent word that they'd sealed the Stellaron." "So, Bronia's words carry more weight here than Kokolia's?" another asked. "Exactly. We were about to fight Gepard, but as soon as we showed Bronia's badge, things smoothed over." A murmur spread among the soldiers. Years ago, when the Supreme Guardian issued a wrong order, the Silvermane guards took heavy losses. After that, she voluntarily gave up supreme command. "You're being diplomatic," someone grumbled. "If the Supreme Guardian hadn't given an absurd order like Silvermane Archers, fire team, move forward 20 meters, there wouldn't have been so many complaints from the front line." A voice came from the rear. Everyone turned and found Pella, the intelligence officer for the Silvermanes. "Pella, why are you here?" "The Supreme Guardian wants all of you to return to the administrative district. She has an important announcement to make in front of Klapoth Fort." "All of us" means Gepard, Serval, Bronya, and these outsiders. The lady from the underworld is temporarily not invited. Sela rested her scythe on her shoulder and looked unconcerned. "It would be strange if she invited me, a smuggler. Since Bronya is fine, I should go back and report to Natasha." Gepard handed over supreme command to his officers and left the restricted zone with the others. The group met Bronya in front of the Everwinter Memorial. She had not stayed confined to her room long before being told she could move about, though she had been explicitly forbidden from meeting Kokolia. "Bronya, it's so good you're unharmed. What does Kokolia want?" someone asked. "I made everyone worry. Mother didn't do anything to me, but I don't know what she plans to do next," Bronya said. Pella signaled a soldier to fetch Kokolia. Soon the group entered Klapoth Fort. The hall was crowded. The Reimstings, the Povas, the Gothas, along with Gepard and Serval of the Landau family. All the major nobles of Belobog were present. Some looked like they'd been waiting for a while. But Kokolia herself was nowhere to be seen. "By the Amber Lord, it's truly wonderful that Lady Bronya and the esteemed outsiders are safe," declared the head of the Pova family. "Where is Mother?" Bronya asked. "The Supreme Guardian, emulating our oldest tradition, has already embarked on the path of the last step," the Pova head said. "What?" Bronya was stunned. What does the last step mean?" "The outsiders may not know. 700 years ago, Belobog's first Supreme Guardian, Alicia Rand, chose to enter the Fragmentum alone to end her life. The second, Svetlana Rand, chose the same. So, Bronya remembered what Sela had said and forced herself to calm. "What else did Mother say?" "She said Belobog will enter a new era under your governance. And under Belobog law, you are now the 19th Supreme Guardian and may exercise all authority belonging to the office." "I understand. Then my first order is to lift the blockade between the upper and the underworld. From this day forward, people may move freely between the upper and the underworld, as they did before the blockade." After that, the nobles dispersed from Klapoth Fort one by one. Dan Heng nudged March 7th. "Let's return to the underworld first and tell Natasha and the others what happened here. Lifting the blockade won't erase distrust overnight. With our help and the wildfires, we can avoid unnecessary conflicts." "Then I trouble you. Oh, and when you see Seal, tell her to come find me here." "No problem." When everyone had left, Bronya drew a deep breath. The restraint she had kept before others began to break. Outside Klapoth Fort, the group stood for a moment, reflecting. "With the Stellaron sealed, our primary mission on Jarilo 6 is complete. But," Himeko said, "but for the people on this planet, there are new challenges ahead. As Nameless, we will offer all the help we can, but what truly determines this world's future are its own people," Welt replied. "Yes," someone added softly. "I believe Jarilo 6 will get better and better with Bronya and the others working for it." 45. Kokolia said the Trailblaze team returned to the underworld. March 7th went to Boulder Town to find Natasha, Dan Heng to the mechanical settlement to find Svarog, and the Trailblazer followed March 7th to find Seal. Only Eno slipped away to a quiet place and stared off into the distance. "What's the youngest genius thinking about?" Ailey asked. "Ailey, the Trailblaze on Gerilova 6 is ending. How do I put it?" Eno trailed off. "You still feel like something's unfinished?" "Yes, and not entirely. Even though it was only a little over 3 days, it let me understand my abilities better and changed some of my ideas. But because it was only 3 days, and even though Kokolia's memories answered many questions, I still feel I don't fully understand Gerilov 6 or Belobog. Do you remember what the conductor said when we first warped near Gerilov 6? Docking plan changed. This stop's duration extended from 7 days to indefinite. But only just over 3 days passed and the Stellaron was sealed. Isn't our journey on Gerilova 6 still only halfway done? Oh, but at least the most urgent problem is solved. What else is there to do? Ailey smiled. Most people spend their lives either solving problems or on the way to solving them. If you treat the biggest, most urgent tasks as the main quest, then everyone will create countless side quests from their interactions with others. If you don't know where to start, wander a bit, change your mood. I'll always be with you. Clipputh Fort. After Bronya had steadied herself, she found an envelope on the large desk. The handwriting made it clear it had been left by Kokolia. Bronya opened it at once. To Bronya, my dearest daughter, the 19th Supreme Guardian of Belobog. By the time you find this letter, I will have already gone into the Fragmentum to complete the last act of my life. The previous 2 Supreme Guardians made their final statements at the ends of their lives to tell our people, Belobog will never be choked by individual will. As for me, I am only a sinner who chose a dignified end. If I could do it again, I would probably still choose to trust the Stellaron, believing it could give Gerilov V6 new life after the destruction. Generation after generation, people deceive themselves and others with the same lie. Tomorrow will be better. When people go to sleep with hope and wake to find nothing changed, they continue deceiving themselves with that lie until death, and a better tomorrow never comes. By then, they will redouble their efforts to delude themselves, insisting their lives have moved toward that goal and that the next generation will finally see it. Bronya, I know you will want to object when you read this. That is not a lie. If not for their persistence, Belobog would never have awaited the arrival of new life. From your perspective, that is true. But before any turning point came, 700 years of effort could not stop the expansion of the Fragmentum. That fact drove me into despair. My heart is far weaker than you imagine. You are fortunate to have met these powerful, kind outsiders while the fire of hope still burned in you. Perhaps you do not fully understand what happened on Everwinter Hill that day. That was when, after many years, hope were rekindled in me. Between me and that outsider named Eno, it could not even be called a battle. She barely lifted a hand and seized control of the engine of creation, an ability that, for 700 years, only successive Supreme Guardians possessed. By then, I, a sinner, could no longer turn back. I am very grateful to her. If she had not severed my connection with the Stellaron, I would never have had the chance to leave this letter. Bronya, I have no doubt you can become a competent Supreme Guardian, and you will have many capable friends to face challenges with you. But if you encounter other extraterrestrial forces in the future, especially those not as friendly as the Nameless, please exercise extreme caution. There may be beings like Eno, against whom even all of Belobog united would have no chance. When the existence and dignity of Belobog cannot both be preserved, I hope you will choose carefully. Finally, do not whitewash my mistakes with lofty words. I have hurt those I loved, hurt my friends, hurt the people of Belobog. To compare me with other Supreme Guardians would be the greatest blasphemy against them. The gloom will be buried with me. The dawn will reach the future because of you. After breaking free from the Stellaron's control, I did not change any policies, because whether it meant ending the lockdown or changing other unreasonable measures, it would have won you more approval and strengthened your position as Supreme Guardian. That is the most selfish thing a mother can do at the end of her life. Cocolia. Bronya read the letter through several times before the Trailblazer and Seal entered Klipoth Fort. So soon, Bronya murmured. Actually, Sol said. After Sela reported to Natasha, she was waiting at the passage between the upper and lower districts, so I ran into her as soon as I went down. Even with so many people there, I was afraid Cocolia might pull some trick. Now that I see you are safe and have truly taken up the mantle of Supreme Guardian, I feel relieved. No, I've only won the support of a few major nobles in the upper district. My inauguration speech hasn't happened yet, so I'm not officially Supreme Guardian. That's a problem. Why did you call me here? With everything that happened on Everwinter Hill, we need to explain the truth to the people of Belobog. How much should we reveal? If the public learns my mother's true intentions, if we tell them the lie that has been kept for 700 years. Seal cut in immediately. No, absolutely not. Sealy? The Trailblazer echoed Seal's words. If we tell the truth as it is, people's faith in preservation will collapse. I'm not good at summarizing, Seal continued, but that's the gist. What if we tell a different truth, that my mother sacrificed herself for Belobog? You mean, Cocolia Rand learned from the outsiders that the Stellaron was responsible for the Fragmentum's expansion. Though she knew the Stellaron's power was immense, out of duty as Supreme Guardian and guilt for the underworld and the soldiers on the front lines, she decided to challenge a force far beyond human understanding. She failed, and the Stellaron took control of her. Through the combined efforts of the outsiders and the people of Belobog, the Stellaron was sealed, but my mother had been corrupted beyond healing. To prevent harming Belobog, she went alone into the Fragmentum while still lucid and ended her life. What do you think of that version? That's much better than the original, Seal admitted, but how would you explain her earlier lockdown orders? Would you use the same excuses she used before? I'd add that the harm suffered by the people of the underworld was far greater than she realized. So although it was unavoidable, there's still room for controversy. Perhaps, with hindsight, there were better ways. Seal softened. And our contributions? I'm sorry. In this version, much of your work, especially Eno's, would be downplayed. I'll find a way to make amends. Seele, I ask that you and I keep this secret together for the rest of our lives. Of course, I know what to do. Thank you. Now, as we agreed earlier, let's start rebuilding the bridge between the upper and lower districts. 46. Thoughts provoked by a string of jewel lizards. Eno wandered aimlessly through Boulder Town until the shouts of a nearby hawker pulled her in. Look, look. Turner, the owner of a snack stall, spotted her approaching and immediately launched into his sales pitch. Pretty lady, our shop just launched a new dish, an improved gem lizard skewer. Crunchy, chicken-flavored. Want to try one? Gem lizard skewer? Eno repeated. In her memory, lizards as food weren't common. She glanced at the Winter City shield in her hand. The underworld had given it to her after she solved the Great Mine incident. Although the underworld's credit points were legal there, in practice, few merchants accepted them. Since she had time and the shield on hand, she decided to buy one. All right, please wait a moment. Turner took a prepared gem lizard from a wooden barrel, skewered it on a toothpick, and set it on the grill. In the barrel were breadcrumbs, mushrooms, spices, and other marinating ingredients. He sprinkled salt as it grilled, and soon the aroma drifted through the street. Enjoy. Eno set the Winter City shield on Turner's counter and took the skewer. Eno, it looks delicious. Alicia's voice chimed in close as ever, and Eno's arm froze mid-reach. Right, Alicia. You're a memory body. You haven't actually eaten anything. Eno felt a little amused at herself. On Herta's space station, she hadn't engaged in eating. The staff had said it wasn't strange for a genius to live without the ordinary needs of eating, drinking, or sleeping. Still, now that she'd gained the ability to eat, she couldn't help thinking about Alicia. That's the same for Eno, Alicia replied. Yes, but I can actually eat now. Alicia, you can only watch. So Eno thinks that in the future you'll be taking the Astral Express to taste delicacies from across the universe while I only get to look. That's not fair, is it? We can't exactly take turns controlling this body when we eat, can we? Eno said, not impossible, but it would look odd. Come on, eat it while it's hot. Eno bit the skewer. Turner had been right. It tasted much like chicken, though chewier. Better than I expected. In the consciousness space, Alicia cupped her face and floated very close to Eno, practically whispering, "Hey, being able to appreciate a beautiful girl like me and watch her expressions change while she eats. I don't feel deprived at all." That's not the same thing. Even if we could both eat, you could still stare at me while I eat. True. Then at the next stop of the Astral Express, when we're walking alone like this, how about you accompany me? Okay? No problem, Eno agreed. After she finished the gem lizard skewer, Eno stopped in the middle of Boulder Town and seemed to be thinking aloud. Alicia, especially after being glanced at by erudition, I've been wondering what my talent actually is. Calling it just erosion feels too vague. It seems Eno just made a new discovery. The unconscious ability to identify, store, interpret, and destroy information. By my will, I can control the scope and speed of those processes. Explain? Let's start with this gem lizard skewer. Even though I've never had chicken, the first bite made me feel it tasted like chicken. That's because of Sampo Koski. Sampo Koski? He's the masked fool. His power comes from an identification with joy. When I read his memory, a few memories left exceptional impressions on him. One of them was the first time he tasted chicken. Using him as an example, I can read and store information preserved in other life forms' storage systems. Some pieces of information that are crucial to that life form get flagged and interpreted by me. Organic or inorganic, whatever civilization, whatever language, I can convert it into something I can understand. It gives me synesthetic cues when I process that information. As for destruction, even Cocolia, Belobog's strongest under control of a Stellaron, couldn't measure my upper limit at all. Eno means she hopes to encounter a stronger opponent. A stronger opponent would be interesting, but a stronger enemy, let's not. If we fought a Lord of Destruction head-on, the Astral Express wouldn't have much chance. Also, that Alicia, I still have something to say, but it comes from my divergent thinking. I'm worried you'll find it boring. We have nothing pressing to do right now, do we? If Eno has new ideas and trusts me enough to share them, I should respond. Say what you want. I may not give the perfect advice, but I'll listen. Eno relaxed. This starts from the beginning. According to Moth-Chasing Flame's definition, the Herrscher of corruption is the ultimate virus of self-consciousness, capable of corrupting both organisms and machinery simultaneously. But biological viruses and electronic ones are structurally very different, so I began to wonder, maybe uselessly, whether I'm essentially an electronic virus that parasitizes living beings, a biological virus that corrupts intelligent machines, or something that can switch between both. The reason it may be useless is that a being species depends not just on physical makeup, but on how it and others recognize it. You, Alicia, don't fit Earth's narrow definition of human, but because you and others recognize you as human, you are human. But if I consider myself an electronic virus that parasitizes living organisms, it helps clarify a lot. Take Sampo as the example. His physiological process for generating joy goes like this. The prefrontal cortex evaluates external stimuli. If they're positive, the pathway from the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens releases dopamine, producing pleasure. If the brain is an input window and joy is the final output, then the brain's processing could be seen as a program running on existing code. Different organisms react differently to the same event because their internal if and for conditions are different at the moment they experience it. Following that, I see why Rupert II, an organic being with abilities comparable to a genius, concluded that all organic life is forged machines used for deception, and started the Second Emperor War. Maybe in his view, organic life is just inorganic life full of errors, running on code written in programs called organs. As my thoughts diverged, I found another way to interpret my ability. As a virus, I can read and destroy any kind of code, in a broad sense, within a certain range. She'd been talking to herself for so long, she hadn't noticed anyone nearby. Suddenly, she became aware that March 7th and Dan Heng had appeared in front of her without her noticing, standing there watching her for quite a while, with their eyes blinking steadily. 47. Under the scorching sun. When did you? We haven't been here long. We only realized you were around when we heard you mention Rupert Tsuk to that string of jewel lizards. I thought you'd be thinking for a long time, but thankfully it didn't take you long." Eno flushed like a middle schooler whose embarrassing private lines had been loudly recited by a parent in front of the entire extended family. To be able to connect street food to the Emperor War, you really are a genius. Oh my, Eno's shy face is even cuter than I expected. I didn't remind you on purpose so I could enjoy this. Forgive me, okay? Alicia's teasing, oddly comforting voice helped calm Eno. After checking her communicator, she understood immediately. March is out running errands for the mole department, so she's not available. You called because a robot named Perkins is malfunctioning and Svarog can't fix it? Yes, Svarog said Perkins has a program malfunction, and you're the genius in that area. They reached the mechanical settlement quickly. Perkins was twitching uncontrollably while Clara hovered beside him, worried. "Clara, miss, you are sister, you're here, watch out!" Perkins suddenly lunged at Eno. She didn't draw erosion, she intercepted it with a casual block. On contact, she assessed Perkins's systems and confirmed the problem was within her expertise. "Oh, how is it?" "No problem, but I have some ideas I need to discuss with Svarog." Svarog, standing behind Clara, glanced at the now less glitching Perkins and gestured for her to explain. "I want to upgrade all the intelligent machines in Belobog. Once the upper and underworld reconnect, these machines will integrate more with Belobog's daily life and help solve problems alongside us. The preservation of Belobog is the fundamental priority of my current actions," Svarog replied. "In that case, I believe modifications in 3 directions will serve that goal best. First, we must gather as much data as possible on every mechanical unit in Belobog and build a unified control terminal. If a machine malfunctions, its location can be pinpointed immediately, so it can be repaired quickly and we can prevent runaway units from harming others. Second, we add a firewall to all machines through that terminal. If a defensive program can hunt down and eliminate other malicious programs, it becomes the best guard. I'll seed benign, dormant counteragents inside the machines that won't affect normal operations, but will neutralize harmful intrusions. Finally, I want to modify all machines' source code without changing their behavioral logic. That will require a detailed plan, especially for security protocols, before evaluation. I understand. Rather than talk, we should use a faster method." Eno stepped forward and placed her hand on Svarog's arm. Within minutes, Svarog's processors began running at high speed. Evaluating the plan. Evaluation result. Plan executable. "That's great." Clara, though she didn't know the technical specifics, was happy the cooperation had been agreed. "Also, I skimmed some of the other data you stored, and I admit I was too pessimistic about certain things. There are many weapons buried beneath Belobog. If we retrieve them and handle external relations carefully, defeating the Antimatter Legion is not impossible. I will seriously consider your suggestions." With Svarog, the Underworld, and Bronia coordinating, they connected all operable mechanical units in Belobog to the terminal system in less than 3 days. 2.5 days were spent scouring the city for usable units for production and combat. Under half a day was spent assembling the terminal, installing the firewall, and patching source code. It's done. You can test it. Protocol passed, program initiated. When Svarog's display lit up, Clara and the Trailblazers who had rushed to the settlement leaned in. There's nothing on the screen now, which means everything's normal. A yellow dot will indicate a potential issue. A red dot means a likely serious problem. Satisfied with the initial test, Svarog turned the screen off. Amazing. Oh, and Gepard told us Bronia's Guardian succession ceremony is about to start. Let's go watch. Belobog's administrative district was livelier than usual. By the time they arrived, the square was packed. Silvermane guards, line up! At Gepard's shout, 2 rows of Silvermane guards marched in precise formation to either side of the Everwinter Monument. Is it starting? We're not late, but with so many people in front, we'll only be able to watch from afar. The inauguration speech of Lady Bronya Rand is about to begin. Citizens, please remain silent and help maintain order. As the murmur subsided, Bronya stepped forward beneath countless eyes. Citizens of Belobog, please listen. We gather today to celebrate because of the continuous efforts of the former Supreme Guardian, Cocolia Rand, and several trailblazers from beyond the stars. Their work discovered the source of the calamity that tormented Belobog for over 700 years and expelled it from our home. I am pleased to announce that the blizzards beyond the city walls will gradually subside and the expansion of the fragmentum will cease. A wave of applause and cheers rose. Bronya took a steadying breath. Sadly, in fighting the source of the calamity, the former Supreme Guardian suffered corruption, and her life is now preserved only under the protection of the Trailblazers. She told me her greatest regret was ordering the blockade that isolated the upper and underworld for over 10 years. Although circumstances at the time were complex, the suffering in the underworld far exceeded what she expected. She knew she could not ask for their forgiveness, and to prevent herself from becoming a puppet of the disaster, and out of guilt toward the people of the underworld and the Silvermane guards fighting on the front lines, she decided to emulate the first Supreme Guardian, Alicia Rand, and go to the Fragmentum to end her own life. I deeply understand that the people of the upper and underworld are inseparable parts of Belobog. Without both sides, Belobog cannot be restored, and our civilization cannot continue. Therefore, I ask everyone to work together. With our determined sweat, we will forge new iron walls. Please allow me to express my gratitude to the Trailblazers who came to Belobog. Your arrival has watered this world on the verge of wilting with hope. You reminded me that while preserving the land beneath our feet, we must not forget to look up at the sky. I firmly believe that with our combined efforts, our world, what the Trailblazers called Jarilov 6, will once again embrace the stars. But before that can happen, please allow me to humbly lead the way for a time. I, Bronya Rand, 19th Guardian of Belobog, hereby swear. The crowd's cheers washed over the square. March 7th was the first to be swept up in the mood and clapped along. Ino, if one day you were the one standing in the center of the crowd, receiving cheers, how would you feel? Alicia teased. Happy, but being stared at by so many expectant faces would probably make me more scared than anything. If it were you, Alicia, you'd just be delighted. Ino really understands me. Of course, I'd be thrilled to receive the trust and applause of so many people. At that moment, Ino's communicator buzzed with a new message. Herta requests that March and I return to the space station immediately. 48. Boundary anchoring. While most of Belobog was focused on the 19th Supreme Guardian succession ceremony, somewhere in the underworld, a faint voice spoke from a flickering television screen. Such a grand play, and you barely had a role from beginning to end. That's not like you, Sampo. Sampo appeared from who knew where and dropped onto a small stool in front of the set. Oh, Brother Giovanni, don't tease me. In front of that genius, the moment I made contact, I was left with nothing but my underpants. I was going to put on a mask and play the fool, but to make the story more entertaining, it's better to run off in time and be a spectator. No chance at all? No chance at all. Honestly, I don't know how she did it. If you knew, I imagine you could at least make half of Ismail's people run in circles. Want to come to Epsilon? No, I don't want to leave here yet. What Epsilon? What fun is there in such a decadent place? You know my philosophy, old Giovanni. The more a pleasure reflects human dignity, the higher the pleasure. Ha, then that's that. All right, bye. Say hello to the brothers and sisters at the tavern for me, and tell them to look forward to old Sampo's next act. After Bronya's speech ended, the crowd began to disperse. March 7th immediately called for a commemorative photo in front of the Eternal Engraved Monument. Ino, we're just waiting for you. I want to too. What are you thinking? You're at least 90% responsible for this Trailblaze mission being completed so smoothly. The three of us basically won just by being here. At a moment like this, we can't have you missing. All right. March 7th handed the camera to Serval. She and Star stood on either side. Dan Heng took a formal position to the left of center, and Ino stood shyly to the right. Look at the camera. 3, 2, 1. The shutter clicked. Ino finished her first photo in her life. Oh, right. These past few days, when you were searching for working machines in Belobog, I noticed your speed was much faster than I expected, especially since you were also helping Wildfire and Bronya deal with problems caused by reconnecting the upper and lower districts. Was it because of the boundary anchor? That's right. It's one of the abilities you gain as a Pathstrider of the Trailblaze, letting you teleport across spatial distances via boundary anchors. As for the specifics, according to Welt's analysis, the process uses the Astral Express as a transit station. It teleports a Nameless from one anchor point to the Astral Express, then from the Astral Express to another anchor point. That sounds similar to the Herrscher of the Void's power. The Herrscher's teleportation essentially enters imaginary space from a point in the real world, then re-enters the real world at another point. No wonder the Astral Express resembles the Thousand Realms Express. Actually, Eno can teleport this way too. Huh? Me? Although I'm considered a Nameless, I'm essentially a Pathstrider of erudition, right? Is there no Trailblaze degree requirement? There is. The Astral Express can't determine whether someone is a Nameless by self-proclamation. It needs action to verify. But Eno, in the past week, you already completed a Trailblaze in Bellowbog, so you should qualify as a Trailblazer. That's information not even Herta Space Station has detailed records of. But boundary anchor teleportation must have range limits, otherwise everyone would know Nameless can jump between planets instantly. Of course it isn't that powerful. For example, right now we have to stand next to a boundary anchor to teleport to another boundary anchor near Bellowbog. The train has to be parked on the planet's outskirts to activate that planet's boundary anchor. And never mind, Dan Heng, you know more, so you explain it. And if the power of the Trailblaze is blocked by another sufficiently strong path, the boundary anchor fails. Take Bellowbog, for example. Only when the Stellaron was sealed and the Silvermane Guard's obstruction cleared were we able to achieve spatial traversal here. Star perked up. If something just appears in the middle of the road, wouldn't people pull it out of curiosity? No, because those who aren't Pathstriders of the Trailblaze can't see or use the boundary anchors. Although it's said that when a new boundary anchor is first set, it can be seen by others. Wouldn't people be frightened if someone simply appeared out of thin air? Indeed, misunderstandings have happened in some places. That's why, when a Nameless first sets a teleport anchor during a Trailblaze, they often choose spots with little foot traffic. Besides, Dan Heng added, Pathstriders of other paths have their own spatial methods, so teleportation itself isn't strange on a galactic scale. Anyway, it'll be much easier to travel now. Hey, since the questions about boundary anchors are settled, where do we go next? Herta had sent a message. Eno looked at Star. Herta wants me back at the space station as soon as possible. Does Screwlum have a project that needs you? Screwlum will come too, but the main reason is that Ruanmei number 81 wants to see me. 5 geniuses gathered, a sight that probably hasn't happened in hundreds of Amber eras. Herta also said that if possible, Star should come with me. Ruanmei is a genius in biology, and she's very interested in her. Welt and Himeko had already returned to the train. Let's head back first and discuss it with them, Star said. The four of them stepped near a boundary anchor in a corner of the administrative district. After contacting the Astral Express, they vanished from their spot and reappeared in the Astral Express's observation car. The train crew discussed plans and decided Dan Heng and March 7th would stay in Bellowbog to help people and to do some sightseeing. I'll take lots of pictures and record all the changes Bellowbog goes through in its new life, March 7th promised. Herta's situation was equally important, so the train returned to Herta Space Station, while March 7th and Dan Heng remained in Bellowbog. Soon only Himeko and Welt were left on the Astral Express. Fortunately, with Eno present, this Trailblaze passed without incident, Himeko said. Oh, I thought you'd find a journey like this lacking in excitement. Welt looked out the window. Perhaps, but safety comes first. I hope the future goes as smoothly as this time. Herta Space Station. Oh, I hoped you'd come quickly, but I didn't expect you back so soon. You brought company? Perfect. Screwlum and Ruanmei aren't here yet. Go to my office and run the simulated universe for me. Don't worry, a new module was just updated, and Steven will teach you how to use it. You won't be short on rewards. After Star left, Herta turned to Eno. Judging by your expression, you gained a lot from this trip. I didn't expect to encounter the Architects, a masked fool, and a Stellaron, all on a planet that's been frozen for over 700 years. My research into the path itself, I'd say it made real progress. You should know that in the simulated universe, both simulated aeons and simulated pathstriders are cultivated by Ruan Mei. Since you're researching the path itself, you might have more in common with her. A little later, Ino saw Ruan Mei on the platform, eating pastries alone. When their eyes met, Ruan Mei rose and walked over. She cupped Ino's chin and touched her neck, an intimate gesture that immediately put Ino on edge. She instinctively reached for help from Alicia, but found Alicia lounging on the sofa, watching her expression with keen interest and no intention of intervening. I apologize if that startled you. It's a habit of mine. Ruan Mei's voice was gentle. By touching, I open my senses. Details of life flood in and help me understand your biological structure. Judging from the surface, this body is a standard abundance follower, but the continual source of vitality is a virus parasitic within it. That is the real you. After studying Ino for a moment, Ruan Mei withdrew her hand. Thank you for controlling your subconscious defenses. I'm only a life researcher. I don't possess much power. If you'd let the virus flow into me, I might have witnessed my own end. She offered a plum blossom pastry to Ino with a ceremonious little bow. Sweet pastries always bring flowers to mind. Bite after bite, the scent lingers between lips and teeth. Would you like some? Ino ate. Having never tried pastries before, and with neither Sampo nor Cocolia knowing what delicious should taste like, she felt nothing remarkable. Ruan Mei laughed softly. When I visit Stephen Lloyd, I always bring him strawberry pastries, otherwise he won't show up. Herta told me you might be interested in my research. Seizing the invitation, Ino said, Yes, your work in biology is well known. I've read some of your papers on life cultivation while at the station. Ruan Mei's expression flickered, then smoothed. No problem. I look forward to collaborating, like I do with Herta. Herta wants us back. It seems Screwlum has arrived as well. Back in Herta's office, Screwlum had indeed arrived, and Star had already completed a round of simulated universe testing. Ino, Star, it's a pleasure to see you again. Logic, the reunion arrived earlier than predicted, Herta announced with a smug grin. Feel honored, she continued. To witness 5 geniuses gathered in one room is rare. Honestly, I'd thought that after before Polka Kakamu's efforts, such a scene would be impossible. Since everyone's here, I'll be direct. It's time to find another partner for the simulated universe. Ruan Mei's brows rose. Are you going to kick Stephen out? No. Why would I? Stephen may be reluctant to show his face, but he's still here. His silence counts as abstention. Ino hesitated. I'm not a collaborator on the simulated universe project. Isn't asking me unnecessary? You're in a special situation, Herta said. Although your research direction differs, the simulated universe still needs you for inspection and maintenance. To me, you're half a collaborator. That gives you a voice, especially if Herta and the others reach an impasse. Your opinion will matter. Screwlum nodded in agreement. On this point, I concur with Herta. Question, do you intend to introduce a 5th genius to the simulated universe? Exactly. The reason we're gathered is obvious. Aside from the answers, what else can pull the Genius Society together? Secrets of the Aeons are an enormous temptation. Someone will answer. Screwlum offered a probability. Number 64. Dr. Primitive might respond. Herta frowned. No, he won't do. His notorious research would only contaminate this project, and his feud with the Sea Rangers would be blown up by the company. I don't want the simulated universe tainted by toxic public opinion. By the way, Ruan Mei, are you still in contact with number 55 Yu Qingtu? Explaining that would take a long, tedious time, Ruan Mei replied. If Ino has no objections, she can go with Star for now and see the life forms I've cultivated. Although she doesn't normally have access to the seclusion zone, that's a minor issue. The culture dish in the center will interest you. Ino, unfamiliar with most of the other geniuses, had no objection and left the meeting with Star. Outside Herta's office, Star, who had understood little of the conversation, asked, Do you know Polka Kakamu and Dr. Primitive? I don't know them well, Ino answered. Polka Kakamu, as the 4th seat, is a genius killer. Scenes like today, 5 geniuses together, are rare not just because they don't always communicate, but because Polka's hunts make coexistence difficult. Dr. Primitive, like Herta, is an emissary of erudition but the damage his research does to ordinary people is probably comparable to the three great calamities, and he has a deep feud with the Sea Rangers. I noticed the station has a seclusion zone that's normally closed to the public. I didn't expect it to be Ruan May's experimental area. The entrance is in the containment zone. Let's go. Perhaps this can also be considered the Trailblaze. 50. Extra. Simulation data. Eno. Time had rewound to a little earlier. Herta was talking with Eno, and under Herta's arrangement, Stella once again entered the simulated universe for testing. As soon as she entered the simulation, Stella saw Steven's cartoon avatar appear. Steven, welcome back to the simulated universe. Based on previous tests, we've added a new module. You can now use other people's character data to accompany you in future tests. So this is just a character preview? I don't see many characters. Eno? Can I try Eno? That's right. Herta has already contacted Eno, and Eno doesn't object to her image being made into a playable character. Does that mean I can also gain her abilities? Well, no. Creating an object that can freely modify programs with another program is paradoxical, but don't worry about power. Using Eno will save you a lot of time when facing powerful enemies. Stella. Oh, I know this one. Eno is the featured character this version. She won't be nerfed out of usefulness in a few versions because of power creep, will she? Steven, you can check Eno's full stats at any time. I think you'll be able to judge her strength after reading them. Steven disappeared, and Stella immediately opened the character info. Eno, path imaginary, erudition, 5-star character, basic attack, unchanging longing, single target, energy restore, 20, toughness damage 10, effect, deals imaginary damage equal to 50% of Eno's ATK to one target and applies 1 stack of erosion. Erosion is an attribute-less dot. At the start of the afflicted unit's next turn, it takes fixed attribute-less damage equal to 5% of its max HP per stack. This ignores effect res and elemental res. Each target can have up to 10 stacks of erosion. Stacks cannot be reset or dispelled. Skill, lingering distance, AoE, skill point cost, energy restore, 30, toughness damage 20, effect, deals imaginary damage equal to 60% of Eno's ATK to all enemies and applies 1 stack of erosion to each. If a target already has erosion, this becomes deal imaginary damage equal to 100% of Eno's ATK and apply 1 stack of erosion to all enemies. Ultimate, Souls Throbbing, AoE, energy cost 200, energy restore 10, effect, deals imaginary damage equal to 100% of Eno's ATK to all enemies, applies 1 stack of erosion to all enemies, and delays their action by 10%. If the hit target already had erosion, after damage is resolved, they additionally lose HP equal to current erosion stacks 1 times 1% of their max HP. Technique, Corrode Your Heart. Effect, enemies entering each wave immediately gain 1 stack of erosion and lose 5% of their HP. Eidolons. Eidolon I. When an enemy target is defeated, if they had 369 stacks of erosion, other enemy units randomly gain a total of 1/2 3 stacks of erosion. Eidolon II. Naivit. When Eno is attacked by an enemy, the attacking enemy immediately gains 1 stack of erosion. Eidolon III. Mausoleum of Fading Fire. Skill level +2, up to a maximum of low 15. Talent level +2, up to a maximum of low 15. Eidolon IV. The Most Beautiful Encounter. After Eno deals damage to an enemy, Eno restores additional energy equal to 5 per stack of erosion the enemy has. This effect can restore up to 50 energy per turn. Eidolon V. Irreversible Tragedy. Ultimate level +2, up to a maximum of low 15. Basic attack level +1, up to a maximum of low 10. Eidolon VI. If I Could Also Be Loved, the damage dealt by each stack of erosion is increased by 50%. Light Cone, A Glimmer of Surprise, applies only to erudition path characters. Effects by rank. Increases wearer's SPD by 20%, 25, 20 cents, 30 cent, 35%, 40%. If the wearer's attack causes an enemy to enter a dot state, that enemy becomes weakened for 1 turn. Weakened targets take 10, 12.5 cent, 15 cent, 17.5, 20% more final damage. Traces, Who Corrodes Whom? Eno is immune to all types of dot. Talent, Data Manipulation. When dealing damage to an enemy, Eno restores an additional 10 energy for each target with erosion. If it's not closed, it's open. In the simulated universe, Divergent Universe, if Eno is in the current team, the following applies. When in a combat event, occurrence, reward, wealth, adventure plane, if there is a chance to obtain 2-star blessings, curious equations, scepters, and no chance to obtain 3-star versions, a 2-star is guaranteed. If there is any chance to obtain 3-star versions, a 3-star is guaranteed. After reading all of that, Stella couldn't help but complain aloud. So many words. I can't remember all of that. Stephen popped up again. To better understand each character's mechanics, you can choose to use that character in a special stage. Stella immediately opted in. The scene shifted. Ino's data avatar materialized beside her, and a Stormbringer spawned on the field. Its HP was an absurd 1 billion. On the field, there were only Ino and Stell. Stelly was holding her baseball bat. Stelly began by mechanically using Ino's basic attack to enter combat. She discovered she also had a brand new 3-star curio she'd never seen before. No waiting, cracked version. Its description read, when an enemy target first enters a dot state, the number of dot stacks immediately jumps to the maximum, not exceeding 99 stacks. Ino continued to basic attack. Under the curio's effect, the Stormbringer instantly gained 10 stacks of erosion. Stella swung her baseball bat. Nothing happened to the boss HP bar. It was the Stormbringer's turn. As it raised its bow, it immediately lost 500 million HP. On the next turn, after 2 more basic attacks, the Stormbringer prepared to fire an arrow and lost another 500 million HP from erosion, then died on the spot. Good, thankfully it's this strong, Stella said, relieved. No matter how huge the boss's HP, it's irrelevant. Ino and I can butcher them all. Because the run had started with no waiting, cracked version, everything went smoothly. With excellent luck, she soon acquired the Annihilation Candle Scissors and entered an adventure that turned out to be smashing jars again. By the time she reached the 3rd plane, she found Cocolia waiting and felt totally confident. Cocolia, I, the Nameless, am here. Entering combat, the combo of ever-chattering parchment plus no waiting, cracked version, Ino's technique, detonated into a blood-boiling sequence. Cocolia's HP was already down to 20% the moment she appeared. The blessings and curios had given such large buffs that even though Stella's play was worse than Otto at times, she still finished the battle easily. I tried to write Ino's eidolons, light cone, and specific skill descriptions in detail. I'm not a planner, so there may be some inaccuracies in the mechanics, and the numbers are placeholders. Treat it as a laugh. Characters plan to be implemented in this story in the future. May, Herrscher of Human, Ego, Herrscher of Finality, Kiana. If anyone wants other official characters not yet implemented to appear in this story, please leave suggestions. 51. Cat Cake. After finishing the simulated universe, eavesdropping on the geniuses, and passing through the containment section with Ino, Xing and Ino took the elevator down to the seclusion zone. When the doors opened, they were greeted by a strangely voiced service robot. Hiss, Ms. Herta, open the section. Hiss for receiving, alien species, galactic visitors. Looks like normal conversation is out of the question, Xing muttered. Let's try a more direct approach. Ino held out her hand and read the machine's data. The info I can pull is limited. In short, the seclusion zone is an area Miss Herta authorized Ruanmei to research. It might contain dangerous things and is off-limits to the public. There isn't even a map for it. We'll have to go forward step by step. They hurried into the 2nd-floor lab. Ino sat at a terminal and started reading Ruanmei's experimental records while Xing checked the room. On a coffee table, a clear container held several pastries with a label that read, "Do not eat." Do not eat, Xing thought. Giving up on trying the unknown just because of a warning? That's not the trailblazer spirit. She opened the container, grabbed a pastry, and popped it into her mouth. It was sweet without being cloying, a fragrant bite that filled her mouth. Huh, this is actually pretty good. One turned into 2, and soon the container was empty. Meanwhile, Ino's eyes widened over the records. Purely rational life, failed. Cultivating number 8 RAM, failed. Creating life born a genius, failed. I didn't expect Ruanmei to be trying so many unlikely things. And she used other geniuses' artifacts as raw materials. Screwlum's special motor oil, Yu Qingtu's poisoned wine, Siskar's spider silk, fragments from Miss Herta's puppet, Lilta's handwriting. Why would she think combining other geniuses' stuff could make new geniuses? Even if a cultivated life absorbed multiple geniuses' ways of thinking, It would just make the left and right brains fight. Nothing would get done. Ino's thoughts drifted to Vilvi. Even when she split her own personality, the different personas bickered and tried to dominate each other. Merging the thinking styles of multiple geniuses would be worse. If Vilvi were around and came here, erudition would probably spot her before I did. Wait, there was a successful experiment. She read on, incredulous. By dissolving the beginning and end of the swarm disaster, combining mimetic spores, memory bubbles, and plane fragments, and injecting the extract into a simulated Taseronth protobody, a replica of the propagation emissary was produced. Unstable, but capable of maintaining a developmental state? Xing came running over, gesturing wildly. What was that? Ino started, then stopped as Xing's hands flew to her mouth. Xing looked flustered and incoherent. I was just about to go over there and scrub the toilet. She quickly clamped a hand over her lips and tried again. No, I found a new area over there. After renovation, it could be my second room. Xing pinched her lips with one hand and shook her head like she was trying to clear something. Ino watched her carefully, then placed her palm on her forehead. The pastries you ate were probably one of Ruanmei's experimental products. They contain something that affects your language center. Whenever you try to speak about Ruanmei, you become incoherent. It's basically a special virus, but it should be wearing off now. After Ino lowered her hand, Xing slowly opened her mouth and waggled her tongue, freed from the temporary glitch. At that moment, the big door at the far side of the lab moved. A soft meow came from within. When it opened, they found a small brown cat tucked inside a matcha-flavored pastry shell. Is this what Ruanmei wanted you to see? Ino asked. Probably not, Xing said. Alicia's voice brightened in Ino's head. Wow, what a cute meow meow cake. Ino, if you like it, I can ask Ruanmei for one, Alicia added. No rush, Xing said, still half-focused. Let's handle the important stuff first. Xing activated the synesthesia beacon. A voice, eerily similar to her own, filled their minds. Woo-woo, woo-woo. I'm not Ruanmei's recognized work. Woo-woo. Too much negative energy. I don't like negative energy. Woo-woo. Why am a failure. The little meow meow cake, calling itself Red Bean Gray, sobbed, and Xing felt a sudden pang of tenderness. From a farther room, a metallic voice called, We need to find a place to put it. How about we let it follow us for now? I have no objection, Ino replied. Ino went to a locked door nearby, put her hand on the knob, and it clicked open. Inside were dozens of meow meow cakes of different flavors, hopping and rubbing against their legs. At the far end of the room stood a robot like the one they'd met at the elevator. It didn't look very bright either, so Ino used her erosion authority to read its logs. Authentication successful. Permissions opened. Hiss, hiss. When the hatch at the room's end began to open, Xing darted out first. The moment her left foot crossed the threshold, the air twisted and loud wing flapping filled her ears. She instinctively slid, avoiding the invisible strike, sprang up, and swung her baseball bat. The sudden sting that had appeared was smashed in a single, clean blow. According to the info here, there's a narrow passage ahead, Xing said, breathless. There are probably more invisible stings like that. You and the meow meow cake stay here for now. I'll clear it out. Okay. Xing calmed herself and settled down to pet the meow meow cakes. Ino stepped through the hatch after her, and another invisible sting launched a sneak attack. A choking smoke tried to envelop her, then failed to affect her at all. Ino stood separated from the fog, untouched. After verifying the hatch was closed, she drew erosion. All right, you spray. I spray back. Hiss! From the tip of erosion's barrel came a pale, corrosive mist that quickly filled the passage. Tiny holes appeared in the wings of the sting in front of her and widened visibly as the substance ate through them. More flapping sounds echoed nearby, then one by one fell silent as their wings dissolved. 56 seconds is still too short. Soon the narrow passage was cleared of stings, but Ino couldn't feel relieved. I need to make sure the poisonous mist is completely expelled into space by the station's exhaust before Star goes in. If only I could direct erosion to erode the exact targets I want. Star, curled up with a cat teaser and a pile of meow meow cakes, looked up. Now that you can control toxicity and spread rate to some degree, you'll be able to aim erosion better in the future. I hope so. These stings look just like the records, If Ruan-Mei can cultivate emissary-like life, it's not surprising she could mass-produce stings. After a while, Ino returned to her room on the second floor of the seclusion zone. Star had found the toy and was happily distracted. The Meow Meow cakes kept watch while Star left the seclusion zone. Ino went down to the bottom floor by herself. That level had only one huge room, much larger than any she'd seen. In the center stood a giant culture dish and its supporting equipment. The yellow-green liquid in the dish was boiling and gurgling when she entered. A crack split the dish with a sharp sound. Ino jumped back. The dish exploded. Viscous, yellow-green fluid sprayed outward like a fountain. Good thing I covered myself with an imaginary energy layer. She checked carefully. Not a drop of the unknown liquid stuck to her from hair to boots. Satisfied, she relaxed only to hear a thunderous bang behind her. A huge blue worm had formed. Ino drew erosion and stabbed backward. The spear tip pierced into the creature's mouthparts. She slammed it into the wall. Feels stronger than Cocolia, but still not emissary level. She stepped around and took in the whole thing. It's modeled after the propagation emissary, Taseronth, but the size is all wrong. From her data on the swarm disaster, she knew a true Taseronth was planet-sized, capable of swallowing a whole station. This specimen was only tens of meters tall, huge for a sting, but nowhere near an emissary. Ruan-Mei fooled no one. She's not really grown an emissary. Still, this is impressive. No wonder Herta let her have the whole seclusion zone. This life form wouldn't destroy the station before Herta noticed something was off. The simulated Taseronth shook. Objects fell and were turned into eroded stings that rushed Ino with hisses. She sprayed erosion's virus-laced smoke. The stings vanished instantly. The simulated Taseronth slowed in the cloud, and Ino took the chance. She raised her hand and touched the oncoming creature, the same tactic she'd used against Cocolia. It matches the simulated universe data almost exactly. Not surprising, the simulated Taseronth was cultivated by Ruan-Mei. The Cocolia data and the Destruction Pathstrider samples from the simulation were also highly similar. It confirmed something. The simulated universe's path data was still valuable for comparing different paths. The only unreliable bits were the Aeons and, now, the emissaries. Distracted during the fight, Ino got hit by the Taseronth's pyrolytic death ray. It did no real damage, but the knockback sent her slamming toward the wall. She stabilized herself just in time. Above the creature, a collapsing star egg grew and hummed, its ultimate attack charging. Ino felt the urge to throw erosion and interrupt it, but she held back. If I try to pierce it while it charges, erosion will probably go through the lab wall. Then Asta will be stuck paying for repairs, and the boundary species staff will risk having to come here for maintenance. If a few stings survived, they might even endanger those people. Better to let it finish. The star egg swelled until its diameter matched the ceiling. As it aimed at her, the creature and the egg trembled, then disintegrated and collapsed into dust. Ruan-Mei had been right. The replica could not maintain itself more than 56 seconds after leaving the dish. Ino left the seclusion zone and ran into Ruan-Mei in the containment zone. Ruan-Mei had just finished a meeting. "So you saw the replica," she said. "I knew the life coding I could achieve, constrained by time and space, would be incomplete. I recreated its birth, but it dissipates into particles in under a minute. It was short-lived, but I wanted to see what it could do. It shows how far I've pushed into unexplored territory." Ruan-Mei's voice was steady. It can reproduce many of Taseronth's abilities, but at far less power than a true emissary. "In other words, exactly what I expected," Ino replied. "I read your experimental records," Ruan-Mei continued. "Your aim was to study why emissaries are closer to aeons than ordinary life. Keep following that line of thought. You mean, emissaries are more like aeons than other life forms, so a pathstrider of a given path should be closer to an emissary than ordinary life is. With your methods, mass-producing pathstriders of specific paths should be possible." Ruan-Mei smiled slightly. "I want to cooperate. I'll share the data I have on pathstriders, their behaviors, logical patterns, everything. Use that to increase your success rate in cultivating pathstriders. Then we can study when a pathstrider crosses into emissary territory. I want to map the differences and the boundaries between paths." 53. True Self. As long as I touch it, I can record the data of life. This ability is a great help to my research. Also, perhaps you've already noticed, I'm not good at expressing feelings. Sometimes the little ones born in my experiments are very moving. I know they want a response from me. They want my love. But is that love friendship? Romance? Family affection? They can't tell, and I can't understand, so I can't answer them. Star told me you're very interested in them, and I want to learn how they should be cared for. If the newly born little ones are to direct their emotional tendencies mainly toward you, I need something that belongs only to you. They reached the second floor of the seclusion zone. So, just a drop of my blood? Ino asked. To be precise, blood containing the virus, Ruanmei corrected. In other words, since it's poisonous, you don't need to process it further? It won't cause contamination? It's fine. From an organic perspective, a virus has a very simple genetic structure. Only one nucleic acid, no metabolic machinery of its own, no enzyme system. Excessive processing would destroy it. I'm curious, since viruses proliferate by self-replication, do newborn viruses have self-awareness? No, although I can sense an intricate connection between the viruses born from me and the original pathogen, and I can use that connection to control their spread. They won't be self-aware like I am. They share my toxicity and show traits of both biological and electronic viruses, but they will never develop independent thought. So even though I'm a virus, controlling other viruses and causing erosion is my talent, not my way of proliferating. As for why, I don't know. Thank you. Your mode of existence is truly unique. After years in biology, I've seen no precedent. Ruanmei placed Ino's blood and other materials into a life incubator that resembled a large rice cooker. After a while, something inside chirped, "Meow! Meow!" When Ruanmei lifted the lid, both she and Ino froze. By Ruanmei's calculations, the materials and parameters should have produced only one Mao Meow cake, but two had been born. They were a little crowded, but the pink-shelled, white-filled Meow Meow cake looked excited because it could nestle at zero distance with another Meow Meow cake, blue-purple shell and red eyes. While Ruanmei searched her mind for an explanation, Ino already understood most of it. They're cute little lives, just like me and Ino, she said. When Ruanmei picked up the blue Meow Meow cake, it stiffened. She set it on the floor, and it hopped nervously to hide behind Ino, retracting almost entirely into its shell. The pink one, however, was very familiar. When Ruanmei lifted it, it nuzzled her willingly. Set down, it scampered to Ino's back, reached out a front paw and gently touched the blue Meow Meow cake's shell. The gesture soothed the blue one. Its head slowly peered out. The pink adjusted its paw and patted the blue's head. "This is the first time I've seen this. The unknowns I can discover from you outnumber entire galaxies," Ruanmei murmured. "I don't know what's going on either. So, can I take both of them?" Ino asked. "Please do." Ino thought a moment. "The Astral Express is still parked on the outskirts of Belobog. They should stay here for now. Once the train returns and my room is ready, I'll bring them to my compartment." "All right. I'll observe them for the next few days and won't harm them." Ino left quickly. The blue Meow Meow cake watched her retreating back with a wistful expression. "Meow, meow." The pink one sidled close, eyes shining, and nuzzled it. The blue's attention shifted to the pink, and its face brightened. Ino didn't leave the seclusion zone completely. She paused in a deserted corner and poured almost all her energy inward, plunging into the depths of her consciousness. Ino looks even happier than usual. Because a question I've avoided and feared finally found an answer through Ruanmei's experiment just now. "Oh? What question?" "Alicia, ever since I met you on Broken Star, I've had this question. Was the Alicia I saw just my own wishful delusion, an illusion I made to comfort myself? But now the answer is obvious. Come to think of it, Alicia, you never questioned who I am, although strictly speaking, I'm not the real Alicia." In terms of mode of existence, I'm a memory created by Alicia from her own memory, but my appearance, voice, thought patterns, habits, the memories I hold, and how others perceive me are all Alicia, so I am, in practice, proof of Alicia's existence. Which means, exactly, if Ino had won everyone's recognition back then, you would naturally have been Alicia too, but I think I'd rather Ino be Ino than become Alicia. Is that because Kevin once said, "There is no second Alicia"? Not exactly. More like, we don't need so many Alicias. Huh? Ino's sense of beauty comes from my memory, but her views on particular things aren't identical to mine, right? Yes. Right. It's precisely because everyone can have their own unique true self that the world becomes so colorful. The interplay and collision of countless different true selves makes it beautiful. Imagine if May, Eden, even Grecio and Kevin all became Alicia. What a strange picture that would be. Haha, I can't even imagine it. So, rather than becoming Alicia, I'm happier with Ino being Ino. For example, right now I can stroke Ino's head inside my consciousness and savor her shy expression. Showing a shy expression is something Alicia wouldn't do. But I know, Ino, like I once was, is still on the path of finding her true self. Turning your unknowns into knowns is also the trailblaze, isn't it? What if you actually meet another Alicia? Ino means the universe is vast. There must be similar people, like the world bubbles in the sea of quanta, where versions of the main world appear. If there really is another me in this universe, then she will surely write a different romantic story. 54. More mysterious than ever. A few days later, Stella returned to the seclusion zone and found Ino staring at a monitor filled with strings of letters and numbers. A1236B6 B47 D783E D8889. Ino traced the lines with a fingertip. What are these? Stella asked. Oh, this is how I record the path composition of different pathstriders, Ino explained. The letters at the front represent the different paths. A is erudition, B is the trailblaze, C is preservation, D is destruction. There are only 18 paths in total and 26 letters, so it's more than enough. And the numbers? The numbers after the letters are the steps a pathstrider has taken on that path. The bigger the number, the further they've walked it. Is there any special reason you match those letters to those paths? In my head, yes. A is erudition, and B is the trailblaze, because erudition was the first path I encountered, then the trailblaze. The rest follow the order I met them. It's just my personal sequence. Which path do you think is best? Stella asked. In terms of best, Ino shrugged. I don't agree with everything every path stands for, but if a path exists, it has its meaning. There's no absolute best or worst. Then which is the most special? Every path is unique, but if you ask which is the hardest to research, the toughest to get data on, it's the enigmata. Ino's expression turned serious. You've probably seen the swarm disaster plots in the simulated universe. In the late stages of the disaster, after Ouroboros disappeared, almost no one reported seeing him or his kin. For other mysterious figures, like the imaginary historian who believes in the enigmata, the harbinger of despair, the funeral guest, there's always some trace. Even Idrila, who many consider missing, still leaves records of her purebred knights. But for factions that follow the enigmata, whether you search the space station or the Express's archives, apart from knowing that amoeba slime is a species tainted by the enigmata, there's almost nothing else. It's incredibly difficult to find any deeper information. As a result, the enigmata has become more mysterious than ever. And the second most mysterious isn't the enigmata, it's the finality. Of the 18 paths, the ultimate aims of pathstriders on the other 17 can be summed up in a single word. The Antimatter Legion exists to destroy. The Nameless will always be trailblazers, but the Aeons and those aligned with the finality, they're more opaque than most. The Harbinger of Despair at least has a motive, preventing impending disasters. But then there's the End King, an Amber-era ruler who has reigned for over 2,000 eras and babbles on, and the funeral guest who seeks the End King. Their goals are vague. To outsiders, their ultimate purposes are mostly speculation. After a while listening, Stelly remembered the simulated universe hadn't been tested that day and decided to leave the seclusion zone. She headed toward the storage zone and found Asta and another security staffer looking flustered. A blue-haired man stood with them, while Stella herself lay unconscious in a nearby chair. When Ino turned the corner, she saw the scene and rushed in. What? He went to the scene alone with Peppy? How could you let him? Asta started angrily, but the two staffers tried to calm him. Brother Asta, I know you're worried, but please don't rush. What are you two doing? Ino asked. I was taking a stroll, one said. I'm walking the dog, the other added. Can you two at least agree on a story? Asta snapped. I'm walking the dog, one repeated. I'm the dog, the other muttered. Asta dropped the subject and turned to Stella. Stella, It's almost time for Miss Herta's simulated universe test, Stella said, blinking awake. Aren't you supposed to be walking the dog? Where's Peppy? Never mind. Actually, several staff members have recently disappeared for no apparent reason, so we're investigating. Your skills are reassuring, but this matter is odd. Please be careful. Stella nodded and hurried toward Miss Herta's office. Eno, still fiddling in the seclusion zone, had a news window pop up. Good evening, all haters. We interrupt this program for an urgent news flash. Recently, Genius Society number 83, Miss Herta, went missing after an attack at the space station. No organization has claimed responsibility. A large number of haters have strongly protested and condemned the management's negligence and inaction. Misstep Herta's puppet was attacked. She probably wouldn't care, but this will cause a stir at the space station. Eno tapped the screen, and the feed switched to Ms. Ruan-Mei in another lab, watching the Meow Meow cakes. Ms. Ruan-Mei probably won't take this seriously. I won't bother her. Eno, why don't you go? The research won't produce major results in the short term anyway. Think of it as a break. Maybe helping others will cheer you up, and the things confusing you will suddenly make sense. All right, Eno decided to join the commotion. Before she could leave the seclusion zone, she saw Asta and Skrullum in a nearby room, in the middle of a tense discussion with the blue-haired man. Stella was unconscious on a chair nearby. Eno hurried in. Mr. Skrullum, this was a premeditated attack, she said. Conclusion: the enemy's target was the space station, Skrullum replied flatly. But the method? We do not yet know. We will, however, soon receive effective assistance. Miss Eno, I didn't expect to alarm even you, the blue-haired man said. I hope it hasn't affected your research or Ms. Ruan-Mei's. No, my research hit a bottleneck, and I heard about Miss Herta's attack, so I came to see what's happening. Miss Ruan-Mei is still diligently working downstairs. Good. Skrullum relaxed a little. By the way, this is the company's academic representative, Mr. Ba Ratio of the Erudition Society. Eno gave a slight nod to Ratio, then looked at Stella. Don't worry, she fainted, but she was the last person to see Miss Herta before the attack. We need to question her. Miss Herta. Eno's voice trailed off. Miss Herta didn't seem to take things to heart, Ratio said. She went out on a tour. Before the incident, she received an invitation from the Technology Development Department. Ratio's expression turned mildly disdainful. Miss Averly is capable, but her subordinates are amateurs, ambitious and enthusiastic, but a little brainless. They wanted to collaborate with Miss Herta and invited me to be a technical consultant. I accepted, curious to see how these big brain club members would squander company resources. The timing, though, was too convenient. Perhaps someone leaked information and the attackers exploited it. Miss Herta seems used to provocations, which makes the whole matter intriguing. I've long heard Mr. Ratio is a prodigy. After earning his 8th doctorate, he received First Truth University's first-class honorary degree, a distinction vacant for 2 amber eras. It's an honor that you're assisting us. Flattery is unnecessary. Our time is precious, Ratio replied. Besides, talking about mortal prodigies in front of 2 geniuses is amusing. She's awake. Let's start asking questions. Stella opened her eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling. You're awake, Ratio said. Tell me, what happened the last time you met the Herta puppet? Stella faltered as Ratio's face moved closer, her head swimming. I was running an errand for Herta? Don't play dumb. Think carefully. Before Stella could dredge up memories, Miss Eno stepped up to her side. Given the time constraints in Stella's condition, reconstructing the whole event by question and answer would take too long. Why not use a quicker method? Oh, Ratio said. Skrullum nodded slightly. Miss Eno can read other life forms' memories and piece together scattered information. Conclusion, very useful for investigations. Ratio hesitated, then gestured for her to proceed. Miss Eno placed her hand on Stella's forehead as if checking for a fever. Relax. After about 5 minutes, she removed her hand. It's mostly there. After the simulated universe test, Herta tasked Stella with finding a lost curio, an energy-based life form connected to the Genius Society. Herta said Stella would need Asta's help. Stella found Asta, Miss Eno continued, but not fully consciously. Fortunately, Sinkel from Interastral Speciesology and Emily from the Databank Department were nearby. Stell took that as a possible lead. Sinkel was preoccupied with a trust crisis on the space station. Asta was under a lot of pressure too. They talked briefly. Sinkel guessed Herta might be after a wubbaboo, but that wasn't a firm conclusion. In the end, Sinkel suggested a young man named Adler. He's supposed to know the most about curios in speciesology. She also consulted Emily in the databank department about the missing curio. Emily said similar life forms are rumored to exist in the Jianzhou Alliance. At the same time, Sinkel's mention of a trust crisis bothered Stell. She then learned from Asta that staff members have been disappearing from the space station recently. Stella remembered a previous meeting with Arlen, where she'd also heard about staff vanishing. Later, she rescued Adler when he was under attack, but then her body inexplicably burst into flames and she blacked out. When she came to, she was in the seclusion zone for reasons she couldn't explain. That's what happened after her last encounter with the Herta puppet. Does this method guarantee authenticity? Ratio asked. Her memories are like countless lines of code. When I piece them together, they play back as continuous images in my mind. It's accurate, no further questioning needed. Spontaneous human combustion, disappearances. Conclusion, the phase spirit fire invented by der 29 Siskar could do this. I think so too, Ratio said. The phase spirit fire used to be in Ruanmei's possession. She lost it during her research, just before the staff disappearance incidents. But that's conjecture, Ms. Eno added, and my statement is still only my reading of her memories. Ratio's expression softened. Mr. Ratio, your questioning has a bias. My apologies. Old habits. Academics tend to distrust findings. They question first and seek later. Denial can be an efficient way to probe something, but you're right, we need objective evidence. For example, system records, Ms. Eno said. Let's go to master control. Asta, there's no need to go to extremes, Ms. Eno said, and she reached out to the dormant device beside Screwlum and Asta. 10 seconds later, a surveillance feed of Stell, Sinkel, Adler, and others was crystal clear on the display. Miss Eno touched the interface again. The still image began to play. The recording's audio matched her reconstruction of events almost exactly. Ratio's mouth twitched. Miss Eno, you? When the space station was invaded by the Antimatter Legion, the Stellaron hunters hacked the system during repairs. I took the opportunity to upgrade it, Miss Eno said. Now any surveillance footage pulled up, no matter when it was recorded, will be enhanced and can distinguish individual voices. Thank you, Miss Eno. That should settle things, Ratio said. If there's no contradiction, I'm convinced. So what's next? Stella and Asta's comms chimed. Stella checked the Herta Patrol group chat. It was buzzing. Someone had posted a video. She opened it, and the familiar announcer's voice blared through. News about Ms. Herta's attack has finally surfaced. The Annihilation Gang claims responsibility and promises further action. The association strongly condemns. The screen cut to a different feed. A goat-headed figure with flames crowning his skull, dressed in lavish robes and wearing spectacles, filled the screen. The gods between the stars have turned away from the world, unmoved by its multitudes. The wounded patron commands that all realms be bathed in the firelight of destruction. There will always be cowards who vainly attempt to refuse grace and flee harm. Flee if you must. No matter where you run, annihilation will come. This is, someone murmured, a declaration of war, a notice. You've been targeted. Ratio's tone was flat. With the Legion still in the background, the Annihilation Gang isn't far behind. Your space station leans closer to destruction than to erudition. That figure is the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire, Afrit, Miss Eno said. A life form born from the ruined planet Tophet. The constantly burning race of fire demons calls Nanook their emperor and patron. Even so, they've never received the Aeon's attention. Ratio curled his lip in disdain. Pathetic lunatics. I like Dr. Primitive's assessment. To Nanook, the so-called Annihilation Gang is worth less than a child breaking a vase. After all, he continued, the gang has repeatedly analyzed the purpose of destruction. Their motives are many. One likely is to curry favor with Nanook. But for Nanook and the other lords of destruction, destruction itself is the ultimate end. 56. Surprise also, if Afrit was the mastermind, a lot of things fall into place. As a descendant of the phase spirit fire, he should have similar powers. While I was checking the surveillance, I also traced the missing staff through the group chats they were in. They turned out to be the opinion leaders on the space station who were openly criticizing management. What? Asta's breath hitched. Judging from how the staff vanished, he probably can't perform full phase transformation, but he can manage a degraded space transfer. We still don't know where the victims are. But the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire's plan is obvious. A sudden string of disappearances is the perfect way to breed chaos. Once the seeds of unease take root, he can make a public outcry, push the brewing crisis into the open, and let it grow. Then, the final step, snap, ignite the spark. If someone connects these missing staff by pattern, you know what will happen next. I don't need to say more. Asta felt cold sweat run down her back. It was all a trap. So, their goal from the start was to provoke internal strife on the space station. Realizing it now is almost too late. Ratio's voice was grim. His warning proved accurate within minutes. Eno found that the identities of the missing staff were already spreading through the station's group chats. Conspiracy theorists added fuel to the fire, and calls for management to step down grew louder and more urgent. Logic, chaos is only the beginning. I will immediately go to Herta's office and activate the folding space field in the Curio containment room. With a slight parameter adjustment, it can be used to block the opponent's transfer route and confine him within the space station. Mr. Ratio, accompany Stella to locate and contain the underworld fire. I'll have Ruanmei stand by. If Afrit uses this chaos to strike at her location, or if the experimental subjects escape the seclusion zone, the human and material losses could exceed those from direct attacks on the staff. I'll inform the rest of the staff and try to calm everyone. Before Asta could finish, blue flames engulfed her. Screwlum reached out and touched them, but the fire wouldn't be extinguished. Asta vanished in an instant. "Asta!" someone shouted. "Calm down. Asta was only teleported. She isn't in immediate danger." After observing the flames directly, I can confirm that Efrit's fire is only a wisp of the original spirit fire and cannot perform true phase shifting. Logic. Asta is still inside the space station. It seems the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire isn't completely reckless. After sowing chaos, he didn't give Asta a chance to explain. He didn't come himself. He only cast a wisp of underworld fire into the mess to wander and hunt the staff. If that wisp is extinguished, his plot collapses. Everyone sprang into action. Eno paused, then headed straight to Ruanmei's room to explain what had happened. "So that's what happened," Ruanmei said after listening. "As for the Grand Duke, the others can probably handle him. But since this underworld fire mimics the phase spirit fire in some ways, it's not simply a matter of hunting staff and creating chaos. You're right, if he prides himself on being a pathstrider of destruction, his ultimate aim would be the space station's total ruin. He might use the chaos to open channels and bring in monsters from elsewhere to lay waste to different sectors. I thought of that too, which is why this is an opportunity. An opportunity? To test the results of our research, remove a hidden danger from the station, and deliver a surprise to the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire. The Underworld Fire's interference caused many fiery warp walls to appear in the seclusion zone. Crossing them shifted spatial coordinates unpredictably. But no matter how coordinates twisted, Stelle and Ratio, much less anyone trying to leave the station, remained trapped inside the seclusion zone. It can't get out of here. Do you know what to do with cornered prey? Pursue it until it dies. Stella's voice was steady as they hunted. After multiple chases, the wisp's glow dimmed. When Stell reached the second floor of the seclusion zone for what felt like the 100th time, the wisp finally failed to vanish from under her nose. "It looks like this chase is over." Stell reached to touch the underworld fire. In reply, it opened several warp fire walls and spewed out a dazzling array of monsters: Void Rangers, Baryons, Stormbringers, and creatures Stella had never seen before. "Sk, a cheap trick to buy time," she muttered, drawing her flame lance. Ratio readied his chalk. Then a fluttering echoed from behind them, not the steady wings of one creature, but a spectrum of different flapping frequencies. Stella turned in surprise, but Ratio yanked her aside. Dozens of stings in various shapes and colors swept past them and collided with the monsters unleashed by the wisp. Could it be? Someone began. Ino's voice came from behind. Everyone, don't be alarmed. This is technically an experiment run by Ruan Mei. Stella, you've probably noticed these bugs aren't the same as the true stings that attacked you before. Indeed, and there are many different types. Yes, we added other datasets to the propagation project: preservation, the hunt, erudition, memory, and destruction. After many trials, we cultivated variants like the ferocious devouring sting, the world bewitching sting, and the phantom moth sting. Why were you researching such dangerous things? Someone asked. Because what exists in the simulated universe is ultimately data, Ruan Mei said. That's the consensus we reached. Objective, living organisms in reality are far more valuable for study. By observing how different types of swarm work together, we can infer larger patterns and reconstruct how the swarm behaved during the swarm disaster. I wanted to see how other paths would influence the propagation. In terms of danger, I'm aware of it. That's why I decided to release them now. Unfortunately for Afrit, he only teleported a bunch of weaklings that couldn't compete with these experimental stings. Ruan Mei probably won't get the results she hoped for. While they spoke, the monsters the underworld fire had sent were already being torn apart by the swarm. Most of the experimental stings slipped back through the warp fire walls as they chased the remains. Since Afrit can open a spatial passage and send monsters from who knows where, Ino continued, he has inadvertently helped the space station by bringing us targets. Ruan Mei said the spores used to cultivate the swarm have nearly run out. This was the last batch, and no more swarm will be cultivated on the space station. Nobody here needs to lie awake worrying about the seclusion zone's swarm escaping. Afrit severed the link and abandoned this wisp of underworld fire, Ruan Mei added quietly. It seems he's quite satisfied with the grand gift Ruan Mei prepared for him. 57. Worrying about nothing. After the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire shifted from its imposing form into something small and almost cute, it took advantage of everyone's distraction with the remaining swarm and slipped through the wall. So that's it. Thugs descending from flames? Dr. Primitive was right. Look up. Star's head snapped up just in time to see Miss Asta dropping in from above. He stepped forward and caught her. Once they confirmed the swarm and the Void Ranger in the seclusion zone had been neutralized, Star and Miss Ino escorted Miss Asta to Screwlum. Don't worry, Star assured him. Miss Asta's only been startled. She's not seriously hurt. The Defense Division also found the missing staff. How were they found? Screwlum asked. Thanks to Adler, they'd all fallen into a spatial anomaly and were trapped until someone from the World Species Division, who understands anomalies, unlocked it from the inside. When Alan and his team arrived, most of them were unconscious from fright, but none were in mortal danger. With this resolved, I think the remaining unrest on the station can be handled internally. On Herta's behalf, thank you for your help, but one question still remains. Star looked at Screwlum. If the disappearances were the work of the Annihilation Gang, Afrit wouldn't have shown mercy unless someone was able to interfere with the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire's teleportation to some degree from the start. As for who did it, I think you and I already know the answer. Leave the follow-up to me. Screwlum left soon after. A medical team quickly arrived and carried off the still unconscious Ms. Asta. Only Star and Miss Ino remained in the room. You still look worried, Miss Ino said. Star walked through the events in his head carefully. So, why did the swarm Ruan Mei cultivated only attack the monsters teleported by the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire, and not Professor Ratio and me? It's about the path, Miss Ino explained. The swarm communicate through pheromones. When Ruan Mei and I cultivated them, we started from that system. We fed them data from simulated pathstriders in the simulated universe and added what I learned from the Antimatter Legion and the Stellaron in the Belobog space station. We programmed the eggs so they'd be especially sensitive to the path of destruction, so the Antimatter Legion would be their top priority. But, she added, with the current state of Ruan Mei's and my research, we can only make newly hatched swarm prioritize certain targets. Making a swarm that can stand alongside the Antimatter Legion or the Abundance Alliance and actually evolve a reliable friend or foe recognition system that we can control, beyond the instinct of the propagation that's still far off. So if most of the swarm hadn't left through the Grand Duke's passage, they would have attacked you next, Star guessed. Nanook saw you, and you have a stellar on. That's right. For the safety of the station, Ruan Mei will stop cultivating swarm in the seclusion zone and will not try to cultivate an emissary there either. She'll move high-risk experiments elsewhere. I've accepted her invitation to continue the research on the planet she's using for her experiments. And the Express? I asked Himeko. The Express just got an invitation from Penacony to participate in the orchestral gala held once every Amber Era by the family. Klypoth struck a hammer before and after glancing at you back in Belobog, which means Amber Era 2158 has just begun, and the family needs time to prepare. At the latest, we'll meet in Penacony. Dan Heng and March 7th are still in Belobog doing side jobs, helping the Silvermane Guards destroy Fragmentum creations, aiding miners, and recently encountering a supernatural incident. Supernatural incident? Star perked up. March 7th said she found a girl named Cyril in the guard's restricted zone, like she appeared out of thin air. I don't normally use my abilities to pry into your private chats, but March 7th told me herself. So you, Dan Heng, and March 7th all have your own things to deal with. Miss Eno continued. Everyone's busy. Being busy is a good thing. Star thought, now that things on the station were mostly settled, maybe once Miss Eno finished here, she could return to Belobog. Miss Eno didn't comment on Star's trailing thought. She'd grown used to his occasional abstraction. Meanwhile, somewhere in the seclusion zone, the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire had tried to escape through the wall. Professor Ratio, who'd been waiting, caught it and trapped it inside an anomaly. As Ratio prepared to leave, Screwlum materialized in front of him. I've been waiting for a long time, Ratio said. I'm here for that very reason, Screwlum replied. After all, the true protagonist of this incident is present. You're the one who saved several staff from the Annihilation Gang. If I hadn't accidentally gained a spark of spirit fire and interfered with the Grand Duke's teleportation, those people would have been drifting space junk outside the hull. Screwlum, you're a genius. Can you deduce why I did it? I can't be certain. I can only infer, Ratio said. Helping the weak is the benevolence of a healer. Watching and letting a situation worsen is the sternness of a scholar, and staying behind the scenes to control the whole situation, that's a challenge set for a genius. Screwlum allowed himself a small, dry smile. You understand human hearts well, Screwlum, but, like other geniuses, you're far removed from ordinary people. After meeting a couple of geniuses, especially Miss Eno, I'm even more convinced that the path of erudition isn't entirely reasonable or logical. They once made detective shows that dragged on for 30 or 40 episodes. The only way to make the protagonist look clever was to make the villains and supporting cast stupid, so the audience would watch idiots and even more incompetent idiots outwit each other. But what they couldn't show on TV is someone with powers like hers. A genius detective with that sort of ability could ignore security protocols, access any data, and without regard for people's privacy, read the minds of all suspects. She could solve in one system hour what a television series would take 40 episodes to resolve. Ratio didn't answer right away. He was watching Screwlum as if the engineer's words were less a comment and more a self-mockery. Then Ratio muttered, rolling his eyes. I'm a germaphobe. I can't stand fools, idiots, imbeciles. When I see them, I want to die. Sadly, this station, like the Erudition Society, lacks true geniuses and is full of mediocrity. The chronic disease called dullness is harder to eradicate than any illness. Standing back is the cure. Whether for good or ill, mediocrity, no matter how hard it strains its brain, won't match a sudden flash of genius. Geniuses wander among the stars, while the mediocre can't even follow a single footprint. Ordinary people have to learn to walk on their own, live a mediocre life, fall, get up, and learn from it. A failed life is still a life. They have the right to savor it. Only when they fall, and no one helps them up, will the foolish learn to stand. You're more of a doctor than a scholar, Screwlum said softly. All questions are settled then. Farewell, Ratio said. I hope to meet other geniuses in the future. Perhaps it will be like today. A farce, a series of troubles, Screwlam replied. In the end, it's nothing more than self-inflicted misery. 1 system hour after the space station's order was restored, a small spaceship detached from the station. Destination confirmed, preparing for warp jump. This place can't compare to the Astral Express. I hope you'll get used to it, Ms. Ruan-Mei said. Miss Eno looked around. Ruan-Mei's ship was clearly much smaller than the Astral Express. Aside from the cockpit, which the ship's intelligent control handled almost entirely, there was only a single guest room that would feel cramped with 4 people. In the center sat a low tea table with 2 plates of pastries, an embroidered fan, a radio, a teapot, and 2 cups. Dark green plum blossoms bloomed along the walls at intervals, giving the room a peculiar charm. Curious, Miss Eno poked one of the plum blossoms. When touched, it closed its petals like a mimosa. This spaceship is a hybrid of biological and mechanical tech? She asked. Ruan-Mei nodded, turned the radio on, and a pair of standard broadcast announcer voices filled the cabin. Welcome to today's Interstellar Peace broadcast, dear listeners. Good evening. Good evening. Qlipoth's great hammer of preservation has fallen once again, its sound echoing across the cosmos, deafening. Confirmed by the Starry Sky Ecology School of the Erudition Society, Amber Era 2157 has ended. Amber Era 2158 has begun. The Interstellar Peace Corporation will, as always, be committed to peaceful coexistence and trade prosperity among the galaxies. Ruan-Mei's eyebrows twitched. She turned a knob, the announcer's voice faded, and soft, unfamiliar music began to play. Before Miss Eno could comment, Ruan-Mei produced a small instrument, round-bodied, straight-necked, 4 strings and 12 frets. She positioned it on her lap and began to play. The wind is gentle, the sunlight pale, spring still early, a light jacket feels just right. Waking to a faint chill, plum blossoms cling to the temples. When the song ended, Miss Eno took the chance to probe again. By the way, your attitude toward the corporation seems worse than Herta's. The corporation does have resources and can be very helpful to my research, so I can't say I dislike them, Ruan-Mei answered. It's just that, compared to Herta, I don't like being in the public eye. I especially hate attending academic conferences. Ever since 22 Lil died, the corporation has been searching for a genius to work closely with them. Herta barely met their requirements, Miss Eno said. Ruan-Mei set the instrument aside, picked up the teapot, and poured tea for Miss Eno. To many people, being a genius is the highest recognition of someone's ability or achievement. For me, it's more of a title with disadvantages than benefits. You may already know I had no intention of joining the Genius Society, but invitations kept appearing on my desk out of nowhere. Joining the Astral Express was a good choice. Becoming nameless spares you a lot of trouble, Ruan-Mei added. Miss Eno lifted the cup and sipped. A subtle fragrance bloomed in her mouth. Ruan-Mei watched her like an experimenter, observing a subject, eyes never leaving her. Actually, I've wondered, have your current senses fully fused with this body? Not fully, perhaps, but my 5 senses are consistent with this body, Miss Eno replied. Why that is, I don't know. As a virus, I must parasitize organic or inorganic life to survive. The act of parasitism is instinctual. She picked up a pastry and chewed. After several meals, she had a preliminary grasp of what delicious meant. These pastries don't have the anti-truth serum in them. Ruan-Mei blinked, then smiled quickly. This is the touch of life. As I perceive your life composition, you gain information from me too. I invited you here not only to continue our respective research, but for one more reason. Well, one person. Your ability might be very useful. Ruan-Mei took a pastry herself. Just before I came to the space station, a blond man carrying a coffin stopped me. He handed over a dying Foxian woman and begged me to save her. He said he was a merchant and that the woman came from the Xingxiao Merchant Guild of Xianzhou Luofu, nothing to do with the Grand Duke of Underworld Fire. Apparently, a Xingxiao Merchant Guild star dome was attacked on the way back to Luofu by a Lord of Destruction. A Lord of Destruction? Miss Eno's brow rose. Then, Ruan-Mei shook her head. I managed to keep her alive for now, but whether she ultimately survives depends on her. From the damage, it wasn't Fen Feng. She'd be annihilated if it were. It wasn't Xingxiao either. She would have become a Void Ranger. So it wasn't a Lord of Destruction who aims only at outright annihilation. Perhaps someone who prefers to foment internal conflicts inside a nation or faction until it collapses from within, or who manipulates wars from the shadows. That sort of thing fits the bill. Before she came here, her consciousness was in chaos. She couldn't remember who she was. Your ability might help her piece her scattered memories back together. Destination reached, the ship's intelligent control announced, interrupting their conversation. Ms. Eno looked out the window. The planet below was a vivid blue-green, teeming with life, nothing like Jurillo V6. Bozuo, we're here. Ruan Mei moved to the cockpit and pressed a button. On the ship's screen, a pair of eyes and a mouth formed, as if the planet itself were taking shape. The face looked as though it belonged to the world below. A clear, sweet voice issued from it. Ms. Ruan Mei, you're finally back. It's been over 1,000 system hours since we last met. I missed you so much. Miss Ruan Mei, as you can see, this is Bosuo, the living planet I've cultivated. It has its own mind and way of expressing itself. A synesthetic beacon translates it into language we can understand. Bosuo, this is my new friend, Miss Eno, the last genius of Amber Era 2157. The expression on the screen bobbed up and down, as if nodding toward Miss Eno. So you're a genius too. Hello, Miss Eno. I look forward to you and Miss Ruan Mei entering my body together. 59. Herbalist. The spaceship descended slowly onto Bozuo Star. Eno stepped down the hatch and found they had landed on a beach, dense forest pressing in on one side and an endless ocean on the other. Ruan Mei stood at the water's edge, speaking into the planet's interface as if in conversation with the sea. Bozuo, open the passage to Laboratory 1. No problem. A young girl's voice carried through the synesthesia beacon answered them. In the next moment, the seawater before Ruan Mei parted like a curtain, receding to both sides and revealing a submerged path descending beneath the waves. Wow, what a spectacle! I never thought anyone could actively part the sea like that, Eno said, almost delighted. Kevin could, but he'd do it differently, Ruan Mei replied. He'd either freeze the whole sea or unleash his heavenly fire and evaporate it. He wouldn't make a show like this. They entered the underwater laboratory while Bosuo's systems kept the water pulled back. Eno barely noticed the planet's work. Her attention had already fixed on the figure ahead. He was human-shaped, but the branches sprouting from his back signaled something else entirely. He stood rooted like a tree, face numb and expressionless. When he became aware of them, he turned his head slightly. His eyes drifted now and then, a small sign that he was still alive. But otherwise he made no move to speak or react. This is, Eno began. Don't think I experimented on him, Ruan Mei said quickly. When I found him, he already looked like this. What exactly happened? Because he's a herb gatherer. I see. The herb gatherer was a kind of abundance follower. The branches growing from his body were the abundance's mark. He had once hoped to be a hero like the longevity strangers, but things went terribly wrong. Powerful nobles on many worlds, seeing the abundance's blessing, abducted him and harvested his blood and bones as ingredients for immortality elixirs. Those who drank the cures typically became immortal monsters, carriers that spread infection until whole planets fell. Some tried to resist, shooting the gatherer, stabbing him, but nothing killed him. He remained ageless, unhurt, and immortal. In that perverse way, the herb gatherer himself became the medicine. After endless imprisonment and watching civilizations crumble around him, he moved from confusion to anger and finally to numbness. By the time Ruan Mei found him, he had slipped into the nihility. For his condition, shouldn't a chaos medic examine him? Eno asked. Murong came, Ruan Mei said. His conclusion was that it's a long-term plan. First, he's on Bosuo Star, where no one will use him as an ingredient. In his current state, Bosuo Star won't be destroyed because of him. The environment here even suits him to emerge from the nihility. Second, he fell into the nihility because of repeated, prolonged stimulation. If we gave him Awaken 310 or other cognition-altering drugs, it could make things worse, push him deeper into the nihility. Third, as an abundance follower, he has more time than most patients. If you only want his data about abundance and the nihility, go ahead. He won't resist now. Eno reached out and laid her hand on the branches sprouting from him. He glanced at her once, then resumed his rooted state. Memories flooded into Eno's mind, quick, jagged images, torn syringes spilling their contents onto desperate caregivers and researchers, biomass swelling and bursting through experimental walls, screams as bodies inflated, fused, and ruptured, immortal monsters tearing out of labs, spreading infection and slaughtering indiscriminately. She saw the same cycle play out 100 times. Despair closed over her like a dark tide. For a moment her spirit faltered. It felt as if everything around her had vanished, leaving only a bottomless blackness. Then a cool hand pressed her right hand, a steadying presence that drew her back. "Eily, I'm fine," she whispered. But be careful," Eily answered. "What you received from him just now made me uncomfortable, too." Although nothing physical had happened, Ino felt the sensation of cold sweat for the first time. She glanced at Ruanmei and saw concern there as well. "You just now." "It's nothing," Ruanmei said. "After contact with him, I felt the path energy in my body get disrupted by the nihility. The energy of the nihility is fundamentally different from every other path I've encountered. Erudition, trailblaze, preservation, elation, destruction. They all have a logic. The nihility is an exception." Ino thought of the Pathstriders she knew. Outside of the Aeons and their direct factions, most people don't walk just one path. Life's needs push them to adopt multiple philosophies. But the nihility was different. Its energy not only resisted influence from other paths, it could corrupt them. Where most paths answer the question of how to exist more meaningfully, the nihility answers that existence itself has no meaning, an opposite that threatens to erode everything else. For patients consumed by the nihility, chaos medics, rescuers, and the self-proving academy all ultimately aim to drag them back out with the power of other paths. Ix, Ruanmei added, "The Aeon who never looks at anyone is even more mysterious than the Enigmata. Countless people have tried to locate it, each for different reasons, but none have followed through." They walked a little further, and Ruanmei halted. "Also, this one probably poses less of a threat." Ino followed her gaze. Ahead, an aquarium-like enclosure contained a worm the size of a simulated shattered star worm. It lay motionless in the water, utterly calm. Smaller creatures nibbled at its limbs from below, but it did not react, not even once. 60. The other side of nothingness. This is the uncontested sting? Within the swarm, different subpaths often indicate the roles a species fills. The ferocious sting, whose subpath is the hunt, takes on hunting and guarding. During the swarm disaster, each swarm species had a worm, an emissary of the propagation. The uncontested sting was an exception. A genetic accident left them with near-perfect bodies. They needed only a trace of sunlight and water to survive. Because they didn't have to forage or move to live, they simply slacked off. The sting in front of Ruanmei and Ino lounged in the seawater, utterly unmoved, even as other creatures fed on its flesh. Once full, its body would just regrow. Physiologically, they're animals, but they live like plants. For most civilizations in the universe, this is probably one of the few benefits of the nihility path. Ino's arm passed through the water curtain and closed around one of the sting's limbs. The herb gatherer nearby at least turned her head. This sting didn't react when its limb was seized. Then a wave of indolence washed over Ino. "I just want to do nothing, to lie here forever." Deep in her consciousness, she felt herself resting against something soft, fingers gently stroking her hair. So comfortable. "No, that's not right, I'm lying on..." When she realized she was lying in Alicia's lap, she flushed. "Ely? What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable like this?" "No, it's very, very comfortable. It's just, You thought I'd push you to keep going right away? Ino really understands me, doesn't she?" "Of course I would. But Ino hasn't had a proper rest these past few days, has she? Even if your body doesn't need sleep and can keep working, your mind still needs to relax." After a moment's hesitation, Ino snuggled into Alicia's embrace and closed her eyes. Under Alicia's soothing touch, she felt an unprecedented calm. Sometimes, emptying your mind for a while restores energy faster. That's probably the positive side of nihility. Still, staying in the sea like this and refusing to move isn't ideal. Many beautiful sights require action to appreciate. But when I'm distracted, Ely, you don't rest either." A cute girl like Ino is beautiful, no matter what she does, and I can enjoy it up close whenever I want. I wouldn't waste that. However, since Ino cares so much about me, how about Ino takes care of me for a bit? Don't be nervous. I'm sure Eno will give me a wonderful time. After a few minutes more in Alicia's arms, Eno forced herself up, moved away, and opened her eyes. Then, let's begin. Oh, Eno recovered so quickly. How amazing. Good for you. Alicia leaned back, her head nesting perfectly between Eno's breasts. Eno's body is soft, but I'd be even happier if you hugged me. Eno swallowed and wrapped her arms around Alicia's waist. Alicia closed her eyes, her breathing evened as if she had fallen asleep. Eno wasn't certain what state Alicia's existence took now. Physiologically, she should be like Eno and not need sleep. From how well Alicia knew her, pretending to sleep and teasing Eno once she relaxed would be exactly her style. But what if Ely truly wanted to rest? She watches my emotions all the time and comforts me if anything's wrong. To do that, she must concentrate constantly, right? And she wouldn't play anything excessive. And even if she teased me, it wouldn't be so bad, would it? Eno lowered her eyes and studied Alicia's sleeping face. Something clicked. Though she was still in a conscious space, her heart began to race and a different kind of feeling rippled through her chest. She's so beautiful. A scene flashed in her mind, Bronya and Seal talking in Rivet Town. Did the feelings I had for Ellie resemble Bronya's for Sealy, or Seela's for Bronya? What kind of feelings were those between them? Never mind. If I go to Bellobog again, I'll ask them directly. She pushed aside the jumble of thoughts. Alicia shifted and stretched. I rested well. Eno's hug is even more comfortable than I imagined. Now that you've recovered, let's move on. Eno lowered the hand holding the uncontested sting. Did you use Nihility's power to rest just now? Sort of. Life really is miraculous. They walked on. Even though Eno had braced herself, Ruan Mei's collection still surprised her. The seeds the Phantom Thief had taken from a safe in New Londinium, embers left by the arsonist, simulated swarmworm eggs, and even ordinary-looking algae were all Colchian mass plantings. You have a lot here. Variety. It's a pity we arrived too late. There were symbiotes and brood trees on another planet. That planet was invaded by the Antimatter Legion in Amber Era 156, and nothing remains. After the 8-star systems of the Tarak Federation turned into bases for the destruction, the Antimatter Legion gained at least trillions of Void Rangers in less than an Amber Era. Recalling the encounter on the space station, Eno couldn't help but sigh. Ordinary resistance against the Antimatter Legion is still limited. Ruan Mei stopped again, eyes on the vines curling up the wall. Resistance? According to the Physician of Admonition, most residents in the 8-star systems of the Tarak Federation willingly became Void Rangers.